Cardinals are flying high after a heck of a month in August, 20-6. The Cardinals overall 77-55, and they'll welcome the Milwaukee Brewers from the Central Division. 20-6, the second best month of August in the history of this illustrious franchise, and the Cardinals did it in fine fashion over the weekend, sweeping Washington. That's Al, I'm Dan, and welcome to Cardinals baseball. No doubt about it, the Cardinals, Al, one of the hottest teams right now in the game.
No doubt about it. You're right. 10.5 game lead, 30 to play. Everything seems to be going their way, but it is a little tougher in September, but the Cardinals still should get through it unscathed.
And the Cardinals, of course, doing it with great pitching, and it's Joel Pinheiro on the mound tonight. The plays of the month of August, 20-6. That's next on Fox Sports Midwest. Matt Holliday hitting .367 as a Cardinal with 8 home runs, and he is in the lineup tonight. That's since the acquisition by John Mozeliak. Tony La Russa has one of the best lineups in baseball. What a month of August. Let's take a look at the plays of the month here on Fox Sports Midwest. Left center! Out of here! Makes the play! Oh, goodness gracious! Holliday, out of here! Oh, look at that play! Brendan Ryan. Pujols, it's well hit, and it's gone! Grand slam for Albert! His 11th career grand slam! Deep left field, to the wall, grand slam for Brendan Ryan!
What would De Niro say about the grand slam?
He hit it good. He hit it good.
Throw behind. Oh my goodness! He did it again! You've got to be kidding me! A gem by Carpenter tonight. He goes all the way.
Hey, what a play!
Look at this throw by Ludwig. He got him. Wow, what a throw. Here comes a throw by Anquillo. Right on the mark. Look at that throw from the Cardinal center fielder. Throws to Albert, and what a play on both ends.
Wow.
He got him on the inside corner.
Can't not get excited about a game like this in a ballpark like this against a team like this.
You know what? If the emotion is genuine, it's after a big moment like that.
3-2. He got him.
You got to let it eat.
This is just natural excitement. He's not showing anybody up there. Both those guys are just trying to see how wide they can open their mouth. No, they are absolutely feeling that moment.
Backhanded by Lugo. Settles. Throws. Got him. He got him.
Here's a long one. Way back. Gone!
That will stay in the ballpark, and the Cardinals win it. Ryan Franklin with his 30th save of the year. Swing and a miss. Another masterful performance by Adam Wainwright. His second home run of the season. How about that? The pitcher goes deep. With 2 strikes, DeRosa makes him pay. Goodbye. Strikeout for Pinheiro.
I can't wait to go out and do the things that I think I can do to help this club.
Another strikeout.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. 7 in a row.
John Smoltz struck out 9.
The new addition of Mr. Smolzinski, or whatever his name is pretty big too.
Oh, what a play by Brendan Ryan. Remarkable play by the Cardinals shortstop. Rasmus, goodbye. One of the longest home runs to right field this year. Diving stop Schumacher from his knee. Got him. Oh, what a play. Pujols, left field. Game winner. What a month it was. The Cardinals went 20-6 in August. 5-55 is next. Five key players tonight that could play a role for a win for either side. 5-55 is what we call it, and we'll start with their starter, Braden Looper.
The former Cardinal really learned something on how to defeat the Cardinals. 2-0, microscopic ERA, won 6 straight on the road. Talking about winning, Joel Pinheiro has won 7 straight games, 2-0 against the Brewers, and the Cardinals have won his last 10 starts. You start talking about the big sluggers. Prince Fielder leads the league in RBIs, and you can see his numbers against the Cardinals with those big 12 home runs. Talk about a hot hitter. Toby Rasmus, one of the better hitters against Looper, and one of the better hitters the last 2 games, 4 for his last 7. Ryan Braun, one of the pure hitters in the game today. He is 20 home runs again this season, 10 home runs against the Cardinals in his young career. He is an outstanding hitter leading the Brewers.
Busch Stadium is the scene. Third team to come through on this homestand. It's the Milwaukee Brewers. Game 1 just around the corner on Fox Sports Midwest. Back on July 1st, the Cardinals were 41-38 and 2 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers, who led the division at 42-35. My, how times have changed. St. Louis has opened up a commanding 10-game lead on the Cubs and a staggering 12-game lead on the Brewers in the Central. While some teams sat back in the division and played with the team that they had, the Cardinals decided to go for it with the additions of Matt Holliday, Julio Lugo, Mark DeRosa, and pitcher John Smoltz. Tonight, the 9-game homestand continues against former Cardinal Braden Looper, who gets the call from Milwaukee in Game 1 of this 3-game series. The Cardinals counter with Sinker Bowl specialist Joel Pinheiro, who has been sensational in 2009. The march towards a division championship and postseason play continues. It's the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. Game 1 next on Fox Sports Midwest. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Bud Light. With just the right taste, it never fills you up. The difference is drinkability. By Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers. By Auto Tire, for the lowest prices in town, we shop the competitors so you don't have to. By Chevy, see your Mid-America Chevy dealers or shop and compare at stlchevy.com. And by the State of Missouri Tobacco Quit Line. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. September 1st, 2009, an absolutely gorgeous day has turned into a gorgeous night. And July 9th, let's take a look back. A real key game for the Cardinals and Joel Pinheiro. The only time that he has faced Milwaukee this season, and he made the most of it. Complete game. And at that time, the Brewers were 2 games back, and the Cardinals won that series. Now, they are 12 games back, and what a remarkable run the Cardinals have been on, Al.
Well, they really have been. They've been doing it with starting pitching like Pinheiro. Pinheiro and Carpenter have not lost a game in the second half. That hasn't happened throughout the second half since 1954 for a Cardinal hurdler. And you can see that 13-9 record, 12th best ERA in the National League. He's won 7 straight, and the Cardinals are 10-0 in his last 10 starts.
So Pinheiro is our Marshall Wireless starter. Here's Felipe Lopez, the second baseman for Milwaukee, and this will be our first pitch of the game presented by Domino's. And it's a strike at the knees to Lopez, who's been quite a find for Milwaukee this year. He's batting .311 this season with 8 home runs and 45 RBIs. Molina sets up on the outside portion of the plate. He hits a spot, and not many times do you see Pinheiro miss his spots this year.
Well, if you're going to get to him in the first inning, as Pinheiro has allowed more first inning runs than any other frame that he pitches in. And remember, he has 3 complete games on the season.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Little backdoor breaking ball. Now that's the pitch that Dave Duncan was talking to me about a couple of weeks ago. He said a lot of people look at the sinker of Pinheiro, rightfully so. He said what's being overlooked, though, is a tight breaking ball to really offset the different pitches that he's got. There's a base hit into right as that falls in front of Ryan Ludwig. A broken bat single by Felipe Lopez. And let's take a look at this lineup. A lot of power in the middle of the lineup for Milwaukee. And the lineup has been good this year for the Brewers. Lopez, Garrett, Braun, and Fielder. Great 1-2 combination there. Casey McGee, his conversation in the Rookie of the Year right now, his name is in that. Mike Cameron, Jason Kendall, J.J. Hardy, and Braden Looper, former Cardinals, hitting .213. Well, Jody Garrett is in right field. It's not Corey Hart for this series, more than likely, as he had an emergency appendectomy, did Corey Hart, so he's just getting back on his feet and trying to regain some of his strength, so Garrett is playing a bye.
Yeah, they're hoping Corey will be back maybe next week when we're visiting the Brewers.
The Brewers, many thought that they would contend this season once again, but they've not been able to make up for the loss of Ben Sheets or CC Sabathia. Remember, this time last year, they were just rolling along.
Well, they're really having a tough time keeping the ball in the ballpark. And their starters going deep into a ball game.
This is slicing the other way, but Matt Holliday is over to make the catch for the first down. Let's take a look at the Cardinals defense tonight. Holiday, Rasmus, and Ludwig in the outfield. Joe Thurston, Brendan Ryan on the left side of the infield. Skip Schumacher is 102nd start at second base this year. Pujols over at first, and the battery tonight, Pinheiro and Molina. It's brought to you by Auto Tire, and of course it was Tony La Russa that said he wanted to move Skip Schumacher from the outfield to the infield. And he has had 438 total chances at second base. And folks, here we are in the final month of the season. Only 7 errors all year, and 5 of those have been at second base. He's had a couple that have been in the outfield.
It's been a remarkable season. He's maintained that near 300 batting average, and Jose Oquendo and Joe Bettini get a lot of credit for helping Skip, but the most credit has to go to Skip himself because he's the one that put in all that hard work.
There's Joe Bettini, who sets the infield defense, and you see the stopwatch that he keeps on Joel Pinheiro. And this is a little bouncer hit left side over to get it. Thurston cuts it off. Wide throw to Pujols, but foot is on the bag. And the only play there for Joe is to go across the diamond to Albert. Real key to this series is trying to shut down Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun. What's interesting, though, is that this year those two have been held in check. As Ryan Braun has hit 200 against the Cardinals, Prince Fielder has hit just 250 against the rest of the league. Watch out. But those two are great bats back to back here in the middle of their lineup.
Yeah, that top section was 2008, and that's, you know, the Cardinals lost 4 straight to Milwaukee, and then they won 4 of the last 5. Still trail by a single game, as the Brewers have won 5 of the first 9 meetings, and we'll meet them again next week in Milwaukee.
If the Brewers were in contention, you talk about Prince Fielder as a potential MVP this year. He has had a tremendous season, 119 RBIs, 36 home runs, and hitting 300. Now first base is open in this spot with Casey McGee on deck.
With Pinheiro and his ability to keep the ball in the ballpark, they're not afraid to go after Prince Fielder, but you do it with respect, and you know, you just don't groove one.
Molina sets up outside. Here's the 1-1 pitch. You're not going to give him much to hit, and I don't blame him.
Pinheiro very stingy and walking people, but keeps the ball in the ballpark. He has allowed home runs the last 3 starts, but what is it, only about 6 on the season.
Felipe Lopez, the runner at second base, and here comes a 2-1 pitch from Pinheiro. You look at Carpenter and Pinheiro coming into this final month. Strikeout to walk ratio. There has been one Cardinal in the history of this organization that has been better than those two this year.
Tewksbury.
Bob Tewksbury back in the mid-90s. Then Pinheiro and then Carpenter. Here's a 3-1 pitch. And you know, Al, Pinheiro being a competitor, he doesn't like to do that. You know, he's saying to himself, I don't walk many guys. But then you have common sense, and it's Prince Fielder at the plate.
I agree with what you're saying. It's just, but I'd like to think more of what you said, that he doesn't like it. You know, and you know, in the first inning, you do feel like you're going to score off a Looper who has been very good, but you talked about Pinheiro only allowing 6 home runs. You know how many home runs that Looper's given up? 32
this year.
32 this year.
Right.
By far the most in the league.
That pitch is taken a little bit low, and a ball to Casey McGee. Home plate umpire is Jerry Davis. He called St. Louis home for a number of years. He's the crew chief. Mike Mulchinski is at first base. C.B. Buckner at second. Mike Everett is over at third.
Oh, conspiracy. He now resides in Wisconsin.
Here's a 1-0 pitch. In the air out to center field. Going back is Rasmus. He'll look up, and this one is gone. So Casey McGee with his 12th home run, and the Brewers jump out on top here in the first. A 3-run homer, 3-0 Milwaukee. You also pitch around Fielder. The potential is there for the big inning.
That's right, and McGee really a hot hitter. Remember, he was claimed off of waivers from Chicago, and all 12 of his home runs have come in the last 52 games. So it looks like a sinking fastball that doesn't sink enough. Stays up, belt high, and it was hit over the center field wall. McGee in contention with Rasmus is one of the top home run hitters in the National League for rookies.
And here is Mike Cameron. So a rare home run allowed by Pinheiro. And McGee, 12th home run, RBIs 41, 42, and 43. Milwaukee is fresh off a sweep of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Backhanded play there by the shortstop tonight, Brendan Ryan. And we'll tell you about a couple of pitchers in the bullpen that will be in the fold with St. Louis for a while when we come back. A look at the Brewers' third baseman, Casey McGee. One swing of the bat and a home run to center field. Landed on the hill beyond that center field wall, and it's 3-0 Milwaukee. Cardinals lineup: Schumacher, Ryan, and Pujols. Holiday, Ludwig, and Rasmus, Molina, Thurston, and Pinheiro. And for some of these guys in the lineup, chance to face a former teammate in Braden Looper. His numbers brought to you by Marshall Wireless, and Looper 11 wins this season.
He's one more win and he'll tie his career high of 12. He achieved that the last 2 seasons playing for the Cardinals. ERA approaching 5, but the team, the Brewers, are 15-12 in his starts. You saw those 32 home runs that he's allowed.
First pitch to Schumacher is fouled back off the glove of Jason Kendall. Underway here in the bottom of the first. All 3 games of this series will be right here on Fox Sports Midwest. Night baseball tomorrow, and then we'll have the day game on Thursday. And it's back out on the road for the Cardinals. The pitch is taken low and away.
30 games left, partner.
30 games. Hard to believe, and then it comes to an end for the regular season. Not the postseason, it doesn't look like here in St. Louis. 1-1 pitch. What a fun year it's been, and you saw those plays of the month. So exciting. Some of the big home runs by Pujols, and the trades have energized this fan base and this franchise, no doubt. Cardinals in the month of August, 20-6. Brendan Ryan has had really a breakout year in many ways. The pitch is taken in, 2 balls, 2 strikes.
You go back to spring training. Was Schumacher going to make the conversion? Would Brendan Ryan even make the team? He was definitely going to be a backup to Cleo Green.
You said that the other night, and I'm thinking to myself, he's right. We were talking about that. Nice play by Prince Fielder. Takes the hit away from Schumacher with Looper covering over at first. A look at this defense for Milwaukee with Braun, Cameron, and Garrett in the outfield. McGee, Hardy, Lopez, and Fielder along the infield, and Looper and Kendall, a couple of veterans. The battery tonight for the Milwaukee Brewers, presented by Auto Tire. Here's the shortstop, Brendan Ryan. Nice play there by Fielder, the home run champ. Not too long ago, the Cardinals here in the second half of the season, 28-13. 28-13 since the All-Star game. And only the Angels and Yankees have more wins than the Cardinals here in the second half of the season.
And you know, when Tony's teams are in contention, they usually really push hard for the finish line. And there's a lot of incentive for this ball club if you can have the most wins in the National League, that home field advantage. So you know Tony will have this team ready. Little tougher schedule in September, but I think that's only get you battle ready for postseason. And if you talk to Tony, he'd be very mad at us for even mentioning the word postseason.
I mentioned it emceeing a event the other day, and Tony started knocking on his head to indicate knocking on wood when I brought it up. But he knows he's got a good team, and once you get into postseason play, you never know what may happen.
And you know, Dan, I think if you go back to spring training, remember some of our conversations with Tony, he felt he had a good team and thought it could be, you know, a very good team. And then with the additions, now he's been able to challenge his team and say, okay, we are very good, but now we won't have that that moniker unless we play hard and get to postseason and do something special.
We were comparing this team to 2004, and we both agreed that the lineup in 04 is better, but the pitching is not. And that's what it comes down to. If you can pitch, Ryan Braun will get under it and makes the catch for out number 2. And this team can flat out pitch.
No doubt about that. And saw Looper, you know, no longer remember this rotation, but he's pitching right like these top 3. Look at the record. In August, 13-1. Only Wainwright lost that game, and that was 2-0, a 2-0 shutout against them. Great ERA. Look at the walks to strikeout. Opponents only batting .245. They have been fun to watch. All 3 in the top 12 in the National League ERA.
We get to vote on Players of the Month and the Rookies of the Month and Pitcher of the Month, which my vote went to Chris Carpenter. You could also make a case that Ryan Franklin would be in that conversation as well.
And Wainwright.
But
I voted for Carpenter also.
Mention that there's a couple of players now that will be in the fold for a while. Trevor Miller and Ryan Franklin both agreed to extensions today, and that was made official as Pujols fouls it back for strike 2.
Yeah, that's great news. This ball club, you know, they know they got a lot of work in the offseason trying to sign Holiday and DeRosa among some of their other free agents, but it was nice that they took care of, you know, some people would think back burner guys, but, you know, get them in the fold right now, and then you got the real hard work ahead. That'll be in the offseason, though.
Now think about the bargain the Cardinals have gotten with Ryan Franklin this year. He leads the National League in saves, and he's tied for the Major League lead. Ironically enough, Brian Fuentes also with 35 saves for the Angels, who the Cardinals had interest in. Charity hop there to J.J. Hardy. He'll make the play, but some of the numbers this year for Franklin, astounding. We'll talk about that when we come back. 3-0 after 1. Casey McGee with a 3-run homer. Milwaukee has a 3-run lead after 1 inning of play here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. The Pujols Family Foundation, all the players were there for the most part. That's John Smoltz. That's the guy you want on your team. Right there. Look at that swing from John Smoltz, who has said that he wants to compete the Champions Tour when his baseball career is over.
Well, what did Tiger say about John Smoltz's golfing ability?
Tiger has said that if John Smoltz, number 1, wasn't playing baseball, he could probably compete on the tour. He also said, as far as a non-professional in golf, he's the best he's seen. And John Smoltz has said, under the tutelage of Tiger Woods, I will head to the Champions Tour.
And I'll be his caddy.
I mean, Tiger's caddy is doing pretty well.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
He's done pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last few years. This is Jason Kendall.
Can you use erasers, you know, in the big tour?
No. Al, foot wedge is not allowed either.
I thought it could be a real help.
You and I are so good at that foot wedge.
Well, I play golf with Dan. His ball changes color and logo in flight.
Somehow we still lose to Shannon, no matter what.
Well, that's because if we're down after 18, he says, you know, there's still time to play a couple more holes.
We find a way. Here's a chopper off the bat of Kendall to Brendan Ryan. Slings it over there to Albert for the first out. Mentioned some of the numbers for Ryan Franklin. He is signed through 2011 now. He leads the National League with 35 saves, and he has the top ERA, 1.05. 1.05. He saved 35 out of 37 opportunities. That's the second best conversion rate in Cardinals history behind Tom Hankey. What a year for Ryan Franklin. Where would the Cardinals be without him?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And then you look at Trevor Hoffman. It's not Trevor Hoffman. Trevor Miller. And he was rewarded with a contract for next season and a mutually agreed upon option.
Yes.
But remember, he had a 2-year contract, and then they did the physical, found a tear in his labrum.
There's another grounder, and you better be on your toes when Pinero's on the mound. If you're traveling and can't catch our TV broadcast, catch all the action on your computer at MLB.tv and find out more at STLCardinals.com.
Well, Pinero, I mean, we'll go back to Miller in a second, but Pinero, coming into the start, it allowed 16 first inning runs, the most of any inning. And right now he's starting to lock in on that sinker, and we'll see if things change. Welcome back. They have
You're about to say welcome back, Braden Looper.
Well, I was J.J. Hardy. I was going to say welcome back. He was recalled today.
Yes, but you weren't. You weren't keeping up as quickly as Pinheiro was getting these ground balls.
Because I'm one behind on my scorecard.
It's all right, Al. It happens. 30 games left, Al. 30 games. 0-2 pitch. And Brendan Ryan will tie a record. Matt Holliday leads it off for the Cardinals. When we come back, it'll be Holliday, Ludwig, and Rasmus. Each week on our Cardinals live postgame show, it's the greatest teams in Cardinals history playing in simulated games. It's the quarterfinals tonight, and it is a simulation of a 7-game series between the Cardinals teams of 1944 and 85. Will be the greatest Cardinals team ever. Watch tonight on U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live. Speaking of the 1944 team, the Cardinals in 09, 20-6. In August, the second best August since 1944. That team went 23-4 back in 1944. They won the World Series. They had 105 wins. And the MVP was Marty Marion that season. That was the first shortstop in the history of the National League to win the award.
Haven't seen Marty for a while, but hope he's doing well. This time I saw him, he looked great. Still a big man, big shortstop.
And there's some talk that with the Yankees running away in the American League, that Derek Jeter could be an MVP candidate. In the National League, it's wide open right now. Can they find it? Going out Hardy, he'll call for it and makes the catch.
Cameron really did not see it, the center fielder, and this type of night, it's very difficult. The lights really haven't taken effect, and really it's the responsibility of all infielders to go out like Hardy did, but really to try and point and help out the outfielders. It only happens for about a half inning or so, inning at the most, and then it gets dark enough for the lights to fully take effect.
Ludwig, a fly ball into right field, backing up Jody Garrett, now coming in to make the catch, looks it into the glove, and quickly there's 2 outs. Well, Braden Looper is 6-1 against the National League Central Division, 6-1 inside the division, and 5-5 against the rest of the league, 7-3 on the road.
Yeah, he's pitched very well, and I think it's 6 straight wins on the road. Of course, he's dominated against the Cardinals. 2-0. What's that ERA? 0.3 something.
And I guess you'd have to say there's a familiarity with the players and the batters, the personnel in this league that he's used to, having been with the Cardinals for a number of seasons and now with Milwaukee.
I would imagine it would have been very tough to let him go. You know, the way he's pitched as a starter the last couple of years.
And here's the other question. Do you look at him as a guy that is an older player in this league, meaning is there a lot of wear and tear on that body? And the answer is probably no. He's just over 1,000 innings in his career. Compared to starters his age, that's really nothing.
Right.
Base hit into right center field for Colby Rasmus, who's really starting to swing a nice bat.
That's 3 good games in a row. Colby was 4 for 10, but it was like 3 for his last 7. So 4 for 8 now, down and in, misses location, and that's perfect pitch for a left-handed batter. Get some good wood on it, but
well, the Brewers' perspective, this is kind of their last stand to try to get back into the wild card race or even talk of the Central Division, as they've got 3 games starting tonight with the Cardinals, and then over the weekend they get San Francisco, and then of course we'll be in Milwaukee next week.
well, they still have a statement here in the Central, but they've got a lot of teams to leapfrog over.
Very tough to do.
Even to get into the wild card, and they don't play enough games against the Cardinals to really get that close. And also the Cubs, you know what, they only have 3 games left against the Cardinals too.
And that is here in St. Louis. 0-1 pitch to Yadier Molina. Taken for a ball inside. In the wild card, Colorado and San Francisco are tied in the National League. Atlanta 3 games out. Florida is 4 games back. in a real key series starting tonight. The Phillies and the Giants. That's in the bottom of the 6th, and the Phillies lead that ball game 1-0. Cubs and Astros scoreless in the top of the 3rd.
Dan Radisson there with Hal McRae. I believe Dan Radisson is a roving hitting instructor in minor
Correct.
leagues.
Yes.
Longtime Cardinal minor leaguer. Then he was with Jim Riegelman for years. Been at the big league level with Riegelman in Chicago.
2 balls and 1 strike. Two and 1 the count here on Molina. Yadier is hitting .283, and now time is called. Jerry Davis throws his arms up to signify time. You're wondering about the call-ups. The Cardinals have added Troy Gloss, so he is ready to roll and provides a little pop off the bench tonight. And for Memphis, they still have a chance to compete for the Pacific Coast League Championship.
They had a tough game last night that Wellemeyer put him in a hole with 4 runs, I think, in the 1st inning. They were down, they battled back, and then gave up a walk-off home run to the Milwaukee Brewers minor or AAA franchise. Is that Nashville?
Nashville. Yep.
Nashville, and J.J. Hardy, starting shortstop for the Brewers, was playing in that game. He got sent down. Very interesting, huh, for 20 days.
Very interesting, and how it works now as the Brewers can retain him for another year. Nice piece of hitting from Molina. Rasmus was running and he goes the other way. That was perfect.
Yeah, perfect execution on the hit and run. Ball stays up, uses hands, inside out stroke. Kobe running right there. You shoot to the right side, and that is something that it seems like Yadier Molina can do in his sleep. Hit the ball to right field.
There it is. 37 base hits to right, 52 to center, and 27 to left. That's not surprising at all to see that. So runners at the corners here for Joe Thurston, the 8th place hitter, and third baseman tonight, Mark DeRosa, will come off the bench. And with this big lead that the Cardinals own right now, they can be very cautious in how they approach DeRosa with his wrist, and also trying to maybe get some rest down the stretch for some of their big guns that have played for the first 5 months.
Talked to Mark about it a little bit. A little inflammation is, creeping back in there into the wrist, and asked him if he was still on anti-inflammatories. He said yes, but it's kind of like it's run its course, and I would think the next alternative would be a cortisone shot. And with yesterday's off day and not playing today, he didn't play Sunday. That would have been perfect to get that cortisone shot on Sunday, because you usually try to let it rest for about 72 hours.
1 ball, 1 strike on Thurston,
but it didn't happen.
Little chopper up the middle. Hardy, 2-fielder. Cardinals will strand 2. Top of the lineup for Milwaukee. After 2, they lead it 3-0. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Kia Motors. To learn more, visit kia.com. By the Casino Queen Hotel and Casino, home of the loosest slots. And the new 3rd pound Angus burgers are here. Try one for yourself today, only at McDonald's. Felipe Lopez singled on a 1-2 pitch to start the game, and then came around to score on a 3-run homer by Casey McGee. Top of the 3rd rolls in, and the first pitch is taken for a ball inside. I mentioned that the Brewers, they can hit. Pitching has been suspect this year, but the Brewers, Al, have 21 innings of 5 or more runs. That's most in the National League. So it gives you an indication, they can hit and hit for power, and they've got guys that can provide those big innings.
Yeah, the firepower, but on the flip side, the Cardinals have given up the fewest 5 runs or more innings. Suppan really struggling this season, particularly when he's pitching in Milwaukee. But as a pitching staff, their starting staff has thrown so few innings. They put a lot of pressure on their bullpen, but they can hit with anyone. And how about Lopez? Since he came over from Arizona, he's been a star acquisition. He was the player of the month for the Brewers in August.
Hey, he was good for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And St. Louis got him. Over to get it, Schumacher, and he'll make the play. Now there's a former Cardinal with the Dodgers now, and they've been busy here the last couple of days. But Ronnie Belliard is with the Dodgers. Jim Thome.
We got Jim Thome.
John Garland.
You could Thome to me is, you break that big bat in there, they really have trouble scoring runs. So I guess if you can put that bat in there to put up a crooked number.
Well, one of the main reasons they did it too is that San Francisco was looking for a first baseman too.
To block them.
Yes. And
that's a pretty good reason.
Joe Torre, when he was with the Yankees, Al, he had a guy named Darryl Strawberry who wasn't playing much in the field late in his career, but yet provided that presence coming off the bench in a big bopper.
Darryl was at Pujols' golf tournament yesterday.
That's great.
He was out in St. Charles. And I know he was kind enough to donate an autographed jersey. Very, very personable.
1-2 is the count here on Jody Garrett. He's tied up. It's popped up. Molina over, and Pinheiro makes the catch on the run. Now, Tony La Russa said he's probably the most athletic of the pitchers that the Cardinals have.
He's by far the best fielding pitcher. And, he ends up in a good position. Molina wants it up and in. Look at Pinheiro. He's finished slightly off balance on the first base side, but recovers quickly, and he calls for it. What were you saying about pitchers can't field it?
I never. No. I didn't say that.
You asked me why?
Yes, I said, why do they not let the pitchers field it? It drives me crazy. It's a pop-up. It's right there. These guys are paid a lot of money to be professional athletes.
Well, when it gets a little later, I've got to amend the story that we had a little later, but I got to wait for it to be a little later in California time.
Okay.
Okay. Just tease you a little bit.
Oh, I've been teased. That's great. I'm ready for it. Here is Ryan Braun, who's a California native. As we showed you earlier, hitting just 200 against the Cardinals this year.
Well, that's it. If you can contain Braun and Fielder, you got a good chance to beat the Brewers. They are two terrific bats in there. They've driven in more runs than any tandem in the National League.
Another side to that Thome acquisition is that you also could have him serve as the designated hitter if you got into the World Series.
Good point.
Another ground ball to Brendan Ryan. He's been busy tonight. And Pinheiro has settled in. He'll lead it off when we come back. It's 3-0 midway through 3. 3-0 Milwaukee as we move to the bottom of the third. And how about this? Alberta Meyer, 95 years young, throwing out our first pitch. From Columbia, Missouri, Alberta. Fired it in there. Not bad.
What were we told of what was her goal? She wanted to throw it better than President Obama.
That's what she did say, yeah. Alberta Meyer in Columbia, Missouri, throwing out her first pitch. And that pitch is inside to Pinheiro. 1 ball, 1 strike. Now, she's part of a big group here. 1,400 folks, Lutheran Senior Services. They're celebrating their 150th anniversary here in 09. And it's based right here in St. Louis, and they serve 7,000 seniors annually throughout Missouri and Illinois. It's the 12th largest not-for-profit provider of senior housing in the country, and we had a chance to visit with Dale Kreinkamp. He is the Vice President of Human Resources. He was up here before the game, and John Katowski, the President and CEO. So those two folks stopped by, and we appreciate them making Cardinal baseball part of their week here at Lutheran Senior Services. 1-2 is the count here on Pinheiro, and then we'll see Schumacher and Ryan. That pitch is in the dirt from Braden Looper. Jim Thome, by the way, I just looked it up. He's hitting only .216 against lefties this year, but if he was playing every day for the final month of the season at the age of 39, he'd wind up with close to 30 home runs. And Pinheiro pulls it foul.
And we all know that if you make a mistake, he could lose it real quick. And
there's some that think that he can maybe light a fire under Manny Ramirez, his former teammate in Cleveland.
Well, see, there's a lot of little subplots. But you also got to think whatever's left in the tank is going to come out in a pennant race and into postseason.
Here's a fly ball hit out to center. Mike Cameron is there. Manny may need a little bit more than just his old buddy. Tickets for possible home games in the Division Series and NL Championship Series will go on sale Wednesday, September 23rd. And fans who wish to purchase tickets must go online to stlcardinals.com to register for the chance to purchase. Registration runs today through Friday, September 18th. And you can visit stlcardinals.com to register today. Manny Ramirez, second half of the season, hitting roughly around .220. And Joe Torre was saying that one of the things that he hopes that Jim Thome can do is maybe take some of that pressure off him. He said that Manny feels the pressure of that lineup on his shoulders, and maybe this kind of takes a little bit of the focus away from him. We shall see. But again, registration runs today through Friday, September 18th, and visit stlcardinals.com. Register today for postseason tickets.
This crowd again tonight. Unbelievable how drawing here in St. Louis, and they still say what drawing extremely well in Milwaukee.
Now Albert knocked out the I in Big Mac land, and the A has been knocked out thanks to Matt Holliday and BP today. Here's a ground ball hit to short. Hardy with it and retires Brendan Ryan. Cardinals go quietly. He knocked out the A in Big Mac land. 3-0 Milwaukee, and this season both Missouri non-conference games from Faurot Field will be available on pay-per-view. Missouri and Bowling Green, and that's put away by Albert Pujols to Pinheiro. That's on September 12th, the Tigers and Bowling Green. September 19th, they'll play Furman. And many cable and video operators in our Cardinals viewing area will offer these pay-per-view games for $29.95. So don't miss a second of the action. Mizzou squares off against Bowling Green. That's September 12th. And you'll only be able to see it on pay-per-view. Access your digital program guide or call your local cable operator, satellite, or telco provider to order the game today.
About McGee. And remember, the Cubs have him on waivers, or put him on waivers. That's how Milwaukee acquired him. You think they wouldn't could have used this third baseman when Ramirez was out?
Most definitely.
And he was only 1 for 16 prior to tonight against Cardinal pitching. But he's one of the leading contenders for Rookie of the Year. As you see, this is updated after his 3-run home run tonight. 12 home runs. He's got 43 RBIs. That's one less RBI than Kobe. And all 12 of his home runs have come in the last 59 games.
Pinheiro with 8 ground ball outs so far. And of course, you talk about the top rookies, and Colby will be in that conversation before it's all said and done. The 1-2 pitch. Ground ball to Schumacher. Make it 9 ground ball outs. Everything you knew about fantasy football is about to change. Introducing the all-new Fox Fantasy Football with more customized features and new ways to play. You log on to foxsports.com on MSN and join the next generation of fantasy football. Huge Cardinals fan from Bowling Green, Missouri. Bud Jones is watching tonight and enjoying the action here on Fox Sports Midwest. Hello to Bud Jones. Mike Cameron 0 for 1 as he grounded out to short. 1 ball, 1 strike. I had a fan ask me, and it's a legitimate question, but I almost had to laugh. They said, do you think the Cardinals would be complacent with this big lead in the final month of the season? And I said, with Tony La Russa, not a chance. As Schumacher puts that away. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back. Big bats coming up. Pujols, Holiday, and Ludwig. Saturday afternoons made for baseball. This week, Fox brings you the national game of the week. Pablo Sandoval. Boy, how good has he been? The Giants battle the Brewers in a game that San Francisco, of course, needs down the stretch. And it's the Red Sox and White Sox. Fox Saturday Baseball at 3, only on Fox. Kenny Williams busy in getting Jake Peavy, and then busy in trading Jim Thome and some of the others, but all of a sudden Jake Peavy has come up with a sore elbow.
Yeah, after not pitching yet because of his ankle, now the elbow is sore. Hey, happy birthday to a young lady in Benton, Illinois. She turns 94 today, Stella Stewart. And she says she's a lifelong Cardinal fan who watches the games every night until 9 p.m. unless her favorite player, Albert Pujols, is up at bat. And then she'll stay up a little later. But we're going to give her a prize a little early. So happy birthday, Stella. And here's your favorite player right now.
She's not the only one that does that.
Looper's really contained Albert and Holiday.
1-1 pitch to Albert. Complacency.
No way.
I don't see it either.
That is not a word in Tony La Russa's vocabulary or allow his team to become complacent.
2 balls and a strike. Pujols grounded out to short his first time and pulls it foul. By the way, Pinheiro has set down 10 straight after the home run by McGee, so he is settled in. Good pitchers duel right now. Take away that 3-run homer, and both these guys have been exceptional so far tonight as Looper has given up back-to-back base hits to Rasmus and Molina in the second, but that has been it.
You can see the Cardinals break through and start pecking away at Looper, but when Pinheiro starts getting on a roll like he has, and 8 of those 10 have been ground ball outs, then I think that might be the only score in this very good Brewers offense might get tonight.
3-2 the count. Leadoff hitter Albert Pujols, Matt Holliday on deck, and Ryan Ludwig for the Redbirds. Very much in many ways an unforgiving lineup for the Cardinals as Pujols pulls it foul, but yet you look and the numbers are a bit surprising. Last couple of weeks, at times this team hasn't hit.
It's more than times. It has not hit much at all. Now the record is phenomenal since Holiday has come on board, but it's just been that great pitching.
You can see they're really trying to pound Pujols inside here. He's now 1 for 7 in his career against Looper.
Yeah, I would think the game plan is Looper really busting him in, up and in, and then trying to throw that split finger or something down and away and get him to chase.
Sets up down and away, and Albert spoils the pitch.
Got a piece of the fastball up and away.
Cardinals 18-13 this year in 1-run games. We've seen a bunch of those, haven't we?
Sure have. Games that they were not capable of winning, they're winning now.
Albert, left field, gets underneath it, but did he get enough? To the wall, gone. Pujols with number 42. 111 RBIs for Albert Pujols. Cardinals get on the board, and it's 3-1. A high, towering blast from the big slugger, Albert Pujols.
Well, we talked about it that Looper's now allowed 33 home runs. And we'll see if this pitch, he didn't try to go up and in, but when you don't go in far enough, even though he is so good, he pulls his hands in, and most people get jammed with that pitch. But Albert, in his case, he can hit it out.
And a strike to Matt Holliday. So Pujols gets the Cardinals on the board. It's now 3-1. Something that really stands out since the acquisition of Matt Holliday. And there is a base hit in the right center. The Cardinals have not lost the first game of any series since Holliday has arrived on the scene, and they've only lost one series, and that was to the Phillies when they first got him.
Right. Well, you know, yesterday playing in Pujols' golf tournament, foursome with me, great guys, sponsors of Albert's tournament, and also I think Albert is endorsing their products, nutritional products. Oh yeah, they make shakes and they make protein bars. Really great guys. But one of the guys showed me a text while we were playing. Mark McGwire texted him and wanted me to correct something I said last week. Remember we were talking about Lou Brock and, you know, when he broke the stolen base record, and I said that, well, the team left, but we had to wait. We waited for Lou, but when Mark broke the record and went to Cincinnati, I said he took a private jet. He wanted to correct me, and I apologized that he went on the team plane like everybody else.
Well, I'm glad that's cleared up.
Yeah, he was back there in his suite where we couldn't see him. But
well, Mark and Skip Schumacher has told me that McGwire will find tapes of just about every game the Cardinals play in to see his pupils, Matt Holliday and Skip Schumacher.
Yeah.
And at the time, Chris Duncan, who works out with Big Mac as well, and Shelley Duncan. But it's interesting when you talk to Skip and you talk to Matt Holliday, and I've asked them both about it. So what's the one thing that you really pulled away from McGwire and working with him? And they said there's two things. The mental aspect was number one on both. They said, think about your game plan and don't deviate from that as you approach that particular game. What's your game plan? Don't go away from it. And he said another simple one is don't give away an at bat.
Right. And they're one and the same, you know, but you go up with a game plan and stick with it.
Ludwig got a piece. 1 ball and 2 strikes, nobody out, runner at first. Back-to-back hits for the Cardinals here in their half of the fourth.
Preparation, you know, you study that tape, you see the tendency of the pitcher, you go up there and figure out what you think he's going to give you, and then be ready for that pitch. And a lot of guys get in trouble as they change that mental approach as the count changes.
Ludwig again just got a piece.
Giving away at bats is just something that, you know, Albert rarely does. All good hitters, you know, rarely do. Part of that is that mental approach, sticking the same way, but just don't, you know, you can see sometimes, you know, a guy has a bad night and they get off to a bad start and they just continue it because they just give away at bats.
Here's a 1-2. Cal McRae, when he first got to St. Louis, I asked him, who does Pujols remind you of? And he said at that time, Pete Rose. He said, I never saw Pete Rose give away an at bat. It doesn't matter the score. He said, I've never seen Albert do it either. 2-2 pitch to Ludwig, instead another check on Holliday.
And many times when you talk to Hal McRae about Holliday and Pujols, the first thing that they'll say is high average hitters with power.
Average being first.
Yes.
Talking about that instead of the,
you know, more so than
right,
thinking about power, which
2-2, base hit out to left. Drawn over to get it. Holliday around second base. He'll stop there. And that's 3 consecutive hits for the Cardinals here in the bottom of the fourth. 6 is a serious number. When the Cardinals score 6, you get a 20-ounce coffee, fountain, or frozen drink for just $0.25. The next day at On the Run at Mobile. Win or lose, when the Cardinals score 6, you score 25-cent drinks at On the Run. Well, second time through now against Looper, and the Cardinals are starting to get to him. And you see ERA by inning, 4 through 6. It is over 6, 7+ over 11. And one of the things that we have been looking at, the numbers for the Milwaukee Brewers, their starters, they just don't go deep into games. I mean, you see them go about 5 or 6 innings, and as you said, then it's up to the bullpen.
when you do that over the course of a full season, it destroys your bullpen.
Colby Rasmus takes a ball outside as he singled. He got the first Cardinal hit back in the second inning. Runners at first and second, and nobody out for the Redbirds.
Colby 2 for 3 now off of Looper.
Rasmus, base hit into right. Holiday being waved in. The throw by Garrett to the plate. It's cut off, and the Cardinals have cut into the lead 3-2. The rookie 2 for 2. And no hesitation whatsoever by Ludwig. Rounding second, he winds up over at third base. First and third, and here come the Cardinals. Nobody out, and Molina will be the hitter. So base hit by Colby Rasmus.
Just nice to see putting these hits together. Oh, Kendall very aggressive, challenging right there. Pick up another run.
Now you said welcome back to J.J. Hardy, and remember he was sent down, the shortstop. Hardy sent down to the minor leagues. Bill Castro, who had been in their organization, was finally a pitching coach this year. 18 years. Finally this year he becomes a pitching coach. He was fired, and then they designated on that same day Bill Hall for assignment. So they made a couple of huge changes in their everyday lineup, and then they fired a coach who had been with them for nearly 2 decades.
Yeah, all really longtime player also, and then 18 years as their bullpen coach before getting the pitching coach job and promptly getting fired.
And Molina, remember, he singled to right when they started the runner Colby Rasmus at first, with 2 outs back in the second inning. 1 for 1, and this season with runners in scoring position, he's hitting .286. We have not seen the Cardinals squeeze nearly as much as they did a few years ago.
And Dan, the first thing that would come to my mind is they just feel that they don't need to do that.
Yeah.
They got enough firepower.
I agree with you. And Molina hits it out of play. Now their center fielder Mike Cameron is shading him a bit to the opposite field, and playing very shallow in left is Ryan Braun. And Garrett, the right fielder, is more towards the right field line.
Coming a long inning for those fielders. Looper still trying to look for his first out here in the 4th inning.
No balls and 2 strikes. We know Molina very tough with 2 strikes more times than not. Colby is leaning, not running, and the pitch is in the dirt. Good block by the veteran Kendall. The Cardinals starters collectively the 2nd lowest ERA in the league. 2nd lowest ERA in the league. But on the other side, the Brewers have the 2nd highest ERA. Their starters. There's Wainwright on the left and Carpenter on the right. Those two in the Cy Young Award conversation right now, along with Tim Lincecum and Danny Herron. I think maybe even Ryan Franklin, even though he won't get the, I guess, the acknowledgement of most people around baseball, but certainly we know what he's meant to the Cardinals this year.
Well, I'll throw something at you in a second.
Here's a 1-2 instead of check on Rasmus.
I think closers, you know, the only way they can win the Cy Young is usually if there isn't dominant starting pitching. And I think in this case we're going to have a 20-game winner. But I think sometimes a better measure of closers is where they finish in the MVP balloting.
Good point. I agree with that. What may be out of the Cardinals' hands is the fact that Lincecum could be pitching in some of the biggest games of the season in the final couple of weeks. There's a ground ball hit to short, double play ball, but a run will score. And the eyes of the national media, you know, will be on San Francisco and Lincecum. Let's go pitch by pitch, taking a look at some of the at bats in this half inning as the Cardinals have been able to tie it up.
All right, we're going to look at the pitches. There's the ball up and in. Albert takes it out of the ballpark. Doesn't get it far enough in. Holiday fights it off. Back doesn't inside, just races it out there. That out away from Rasmus. And back to live action. What a play by fielder.
See, that was right on cue. Mike Helling, our producer, knew that was going to be part of the pitch by pitch. That rocket off the bat of Thurston. Ooh. Cardinals have tied it up. It's 3-3 as we move to the top of the fifth at beautiful Busch Stadium here in St. Louis. And we turn to our this date in baseball history. Well, we're speaking of Mark McGwire earlier. Hopefully he'll be okay with this one. Back in '98, he breaks Hack Wilson's National League single season home run record, his 57th of the year. September 1st, 1998, our Schnucks this date in baseball history.
I don't know if anybody's ever going to break his Hack Wilson's RBI record.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You ready?
It's not going to be me breaking Hack Wilson.
No.
Okay. Yes, sir.
This is Jason Kendall to lead it off. You were with Jim Edmonds, and Jimmy, of course, lives in a community very close to Mark McGwire.
Same community.
And is it his impression, your impression, that McGwire would come back and at least entertain the idea of being part of spring training, if not, once his kids get a little bit older, start to come back to be a hitting coach or some type of coach, a roving instructor, whatever the case may be?
It would be very, I think Mark would love to work with the minor leaguers.
Here's another ground ball. Thurston quickly over to first. Good play.
And I think it would be impossible for him to do so because, you know, nobody would leave him alone to work with the players. And I think Mark, as we take a look at this, Thurston backs up on the play. Crow hop and a strong throw across, but I think he would love to do it, but just as long as we have this controversy, he's just going to stay away from baseball, and it's baseball's loss.
Sure.
J.J. Hardy, you know, we talked about him coming back, and, you know, he has, his brother has served a couple tours in Iraq. Logan. And, you know, on Sunday, I had the great pleasure of playing in the Marines. I'll get the terminology, but the Marines Wounded Warrior golf tournament, and awesome event to see those young men. And there were a lot of Marines there and military personnel, and not only the older ones that served, but there were a lot of current guys there, and it was a pleasure there. But I got a chance to meet a very special and an inspirational man, the 43rd Commandant of the Marine Corps, James T. Conway. General Conway was married to a St. Louis woman, and we were talking, and he knew all about how many games the Cardinals were up, what the Cubs were doing, and I got the impression that he's a big Cardinal fan.
There's a base hit for J.J. Hardy. Now, interesting story with J.J. Hardy is Looper here will sacrifice, you would presume. Hardy gets sent down, and in essence, the Brewers have just picked up another year of arbitration with Hardy, 1 day shy of becoming a free agent. They sent him down. It was exactly 20 days. And there are some folks in baseball that have really frowned on what has happened here with Hardy, as will not allow him to be a free agent for an extra year. But they have a terrific young shortstop, Escobar, who they feel will be the shortstop of the future. So one of the things that many have thought is that Hardy, it makes him more attractive if they would like to trade him to another team, and they would essentially get an extra year.
Plain devil's advocate.
And that's one way to look at it, but from a player's perspective, and Hardy is safe.
Barely.
The players certainly aren't happy with it. Hardy was frustrated with it. So what we're trying to say is he's sent down for 20 days. The clock stopped running on him, and they get themselves an extra year prior to free agency. He becomes more attractive in that regard. Now, Doug Melvin has come out and said, the GM of the Brewers, he said, look, we could have sent him down when he was a rookie, and he hit about $170 with a couple of home runs in the first half of his rookie season. We stayed with him then, but in this case we didn't. So That's the situation that J.J. Hardy is in as he was playing against Memphis last night.
Yeah, and as cruel as that might sound, always find as a player, you just have to accept that there is a business side of it. Sometimes it can be very cruel, but in reality, you know, he will get his payday. And I think because of that Escobar, the fine-looking shortstop, and with one more year, you know, he becomes valuable trading bait.
No question. And they need pitching, as we've talked about. Right. And there is some talk of what do you do with not only Hardy, but what about Prince Fielder? You know, can you try to lock him up long term? He's had a monster season. Or you say, you know what, let's see if we dangle him out there, what we could get pitching wise. And they know they've got Braun locked up. Braun is in the fold for the next 6 years. So Hardy is a question mark along with Fielder. Well, that would be awfully tough to accept, though, if you're J.J. Hardy and you've worked with minor league players out in Arizona. You have not been given any kind of extension. You've been year to year. And you've had pretty good numbers, too.
And I can also tell you, look at all the guys in the 30s, 40s, 50s that say free agency, arbitration. What the heck are you talking about? You know, we had to go year for year. There were no multi-year contracts. There was no money like they're talking about today. And, you know, it is a business.
2 balls and a strike here on Felipe Lopez. That pitch catches the outside corner. And the count is even. 2 balls, 2 strikes with 2 outs and a runner at second base. But again, that would be really tough to swallow if you're J.J. Hardy. And from a player's perspective, I can understand why they would be frustrated. Gap in right center. Lopez is 1 for 2. Good block by Molina. It's textbook right there. And my understanding is in the upcoming road trip, our buddy Mike Matheny will be with us. He'll make the road trip with us to Pittsburgh and Milwaukee.
I know I saw Mike Matheny, and he was, I think, initially asked to go on the Knicks road trip, and yet that was that Monday, the off day, like the 27th or something like that, is his golf tournament. So that would make sense for him to not go on that one, the 28th. So it would make sense for him to go on this one. He didn't say anything about it.
3-2 the count. Outfield very shallow here for Lopez. Hardy, the runner at second base. And a ground ball. Gloved by Brendan Ryan. Throws on the run, and they get Felipe. Midway through 5. And Pinheiro leads it off when we come back. It's time to bring you up to speed with the AT&T Rapid Rewind. AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network. AT&T, your world delivered. First pitch to Joel Pinheiro. He's taken for a ball up and in. It'll be Pinheiro and Schumacher and Ryan. One pitch, up and in again. 2 balls and a strike. Top of the 6th, and Chicago leads Houston by the score of 2-0. And Pinheiro hits it in the air and out of play. Happy 85th birthday to Howard Raskin, watching tonight in Oklahoma City. Big Cardinals country there, and a big Cardinals fan. Howard Raskin, happy 85th birthday. 2-2. Here's a 3-2. Now to Pinheiro. From Looper. Popped out. Foul territory. Fielder's got it. And there's one away. Top of the lineup for the Cardinals, Skip Schumacher, who is 0 for 2. He is grounded out to first and grounded to second. And also Brendan Ryan. 3-3 game. Cardinals won just 8 times when being held to 3 runs or less a year ago. And this year, they are the best in baseball. 21 wins. That just gives you an idea of their pitching and how good it's been.
They have 6 last week or last month.
Yeah, 6-3 since August 17th.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Just swing and a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, that's the thing, you know, I mean, the much improved offense with the acquisitions, but from a pitching standpoint, you know, you feel like you've got some leeway. You feel like Pinheiro, you know, early in the season, you give up 3 runs in the first inning, you feel like the game's over. But now you kind of relax and say, okay, I'm comfortable. You know, if I shut them down, just leave it right there, my offense will come back and, you know, score enough for me to win this ball game. And it's just a comfortable psychological feeling.
Cardinals have Carpenter, who's 14-3, going tomorrow against Dave Bush, who just returned to the rotation. Smoltz and Manny Parra. Parra is 9-10. He's given up 91 earned runs this year. Manny Parra. A swing and a miss by Schumacher as he waves at it. First strikeout for Looper here tonight. Pitch in for Healthy Smiles with Delta Dental and the Cardinals. Purchase a $2 raffle ticket for a chance to win an autographed baseball by Albert Pujols and join the Smiles League. The proceeds benefit local charities that help kids have healthy smiles. For information and to buy your tickets, please go to smilesleague.com. Here's Brendan Ryan, who is 0 for 2. He is flied to left and also grounded out to short. And he hits it to the third baseman, Casey McGee. We played 5. Milwaukee and St. Louis tied up 3-3.
What's on tap brought to you by Bud Light. The difference is drinkability. Well, we'll be right back here again. The Brewers and Cardinals tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. on FS Midwest. Right here, 6:30 with our pregame show. All tied up. Cardinals have battled back after McGee hit a 3-run home run in the first off of Pinheiro. Albert's added his 42nd home run.
And there's a base hit into right field off the bat of Jody Garrett. So here comes Milwaukee as we move to the top of the 6th. Leadoff base hit for Garrett, and that means Braun and Fielder to follow. Ryan Braun is grounded out twice. He is 0 for 2. He's grounded to third base and also grounded to the shortstop. 3-3 game here in St. Louis. Milwaukee scored 3 in the first and a home run by Casey McGee. And then Cardinals came back with 3 of their own in their half of the 4th. There's a broken bat, but a base hit. He muscles it out to left field. And this could be a real crucial spot in this game right here. Back-to-back singles, and here comes Prince Fielder.
Well, the Brewers are feeling good about themselves, but I'm sure Pinheiro says, okay, I got a double play coming. Ball running in. Look at the run in there. He tries to clear his hips, opens up and uses his hands, shatters the bat, but as you said, he muscles it over the infield for the single.
So here is Fielder. Runners at first and second. Fielder, 36 home runs.
Leads the National League with his 119 RBIs.
Oh, fouls it back. But with as hard as he hits it, a lot of times you think about the potential double play if you get that ground ball.
So he didn't do 11 double plays this year. Now Molina out to talk to him, but it's when you have a guy like Molina, you know, or excuse me, Pinheiro, you're really not that concerned with a couple guys on because ground ball gets you 2. You know, he can turn a promising inning into a killer inning real quickly.
In many ways, the Cardinals catch a break in this series with no Gallardo. They will not face Gallardo, who basically has been their ace this year. He's been pushed back, and Manny Parr, as we mentioned, will get the start Thursday. Dave Bush tomorrow night. We saw Gallardo when he's on. Boy, he is tough. Runners at first and second, and nobody out. The 0-1 pitch to Fielder, the home run champion here at Busch Stadium during the All-Star break.
Gallardo, by the way, is 12-10 with a 3.50 ERA.
One pitch to Prince. Here it comes. Ground ball. Brendan Ryan backhands it. Forced play at second. And he may have saved a run.
He saves a run and he keeps the double play in order. So he's a little frustrated, but when you have to backhand a ball like that and hit as hard it is, that would have been tough to turn to. Does a nice job, loses the handle on it, but he stops that ball from going into becoming another hit and an RBI, and he gets an out on top of it. Double play in order, so Pinheiro has the ability to get out of the inning facing the McGee, who hit the 3-run home run.
McGee 1 for 2, hitting .357 with runners in scoring position. And the first pitch is taken low. Here's a 1-0 pitch by Pinheiro. Base hit into center field. How about Casey McGee with 4 RBIs here tonight, and Milwaukee back on top 4-3.
Well, misses location. Not only is it up a little bit, but it's on the wrong side of the plate. As Molina was set up outside, it was up and in. But not that far up and not that far in.
So McGee single-handedly trying to beat the Cardinals here tonight. He has 4 RBIs. 6th inning, 1 out, runners at first and second. And here is Mike Cameron, who is 0 for 2. Cameron, high fly ball into left center. Over to get it, Rasmus, and he'll make the catch. Both were back, and it looked like he was almost waiting for Holiday to take charge, and comes in a few steps to make that catch. Come watch the Cardinals take on the Braves on Saturday, September 12th, and receive an all-star pennant featuring your 09 Cardinals All-Stars: Pujols, Franklin, Molina, and manager Tony La Russa. All kids 15 and under will receive the pennant courtesy of Coca-Cola and Pasta House. For tickets, visit stlcardinals.com, and I believe if everything goes to plan, that could be a start for John Smoltz on Saturday, September 12th. You guessed it, against the Atlanta Braves. Wouldn't that be something? You don't want to miss that game, do you?
No.
That's a good one to be at. Here's Jason Kendall, who is 0 for 2. He's grounded to short and also grounded out to third.
And we are doing that game. Well, Big Fox is doing that game at a 3:10 start.
Pitch scoots away from Molina, but no advancement of the runners. 4-3 Milwaukee. McGee now with 44 RBIs on the year. This time last season, the Cardinals 74-64, but 10 games back of Chicago.
He had an extra week of games.
Here's a 1-0 pitch to Kendall. Pops it up. Pinheiro. Molina. Yadi's got it. Brewers strand 2. They've stranded 3 on the night, but they regain the lead. It's 4-3. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by AT&T. Switch to the nation's fastest 3G network. AT&T, your world delivered. And brought to you by Taco Bell's new Volcano menu. It's seriously spicy.
Interesting response in the kiss cam, wasn't it?
Oh, it sure was.
Maybe somebody wasn't supposed to be here.
He was running to make sure that camera didn't follow him. Folks here got a kick out of that. Pujols, Holiday, and Ludwig for the Cardinals as they trail 4-3 in the Cardinals half of the 6th. And Pujols looks at a strike. Now, we noted in the last at bat by Albert, they really tried to bust him inside, and then eventually he hit the home run. His 42nd on the year. Here's a strike, 0-2. Looper going right at him. The Brewers will be in Milwaukee next week at Miller Park, and they are averaging just over 38,000 a game. They're 8th in attendance, and in talking with some of their folks that travel, their fan base is a little bit frustrated with having a taste of playoff baseball. Very short last year, and then losing Sabathia. Ben Sheets not back, and they were expecting better things this year. Pujols taps it foul.
It's amazing how I marvel at the Cubs now. You know, when for decades they were the lovable losers, then they get a taste of postseason, and then their fan base expected them to win. And the lovable loser tag is not quite apropos anymore, because they're upset with that club when it doesn't win. They expect it to win.
Here's a 1-2 pitch to Albert. You saw there with Pujols as he tries to finish with a flourish in those MVP years. Prince Fielder, depending on how he finishes up, he'll get a little look, but Ryan Howard has made a habit of having a strong September. He's had 44 home runs in his brief career in the month of September. Pujols pops it up on the infield, and Lopez has got it. And Ryan Howard had 11 home runs in August and 33 RBIs. Cardinal fans, when it comes to tickets, you deserve Major League service, so go online to StubHub, the official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the Cardinals, and the only site with Fan Protect guarantee.
And the one thing, I think Albert's average always usually goes up in September, but a lot of his home runs and RBIs are not as prolific.
You saw in those MVP years he was close to 10, but overall in his 9 seasons, you're right, average usually shoots up and the home runs stay a little bit down. But this year might be different because of the weather. I mean, I'm not so sure he's going to be as worn down in this final month as he might be in previous years, and the fact the Cardinals have had a lot of off days too.
Good point. It's like Stetter is warming up for Milwaukee.
They have a former Cardinal out there that was involved in the Larry Walker deal, Chris Narveson. You might remember that name, a lefty, as he pitches from the left side along with Mitch Stetter. They're 2 lefties in their bullpen. 1-2 the count. Holiday pulls it foul. Matt Holliday tonight singled and scored. A base hit by Colby Rasmus. That was back in the 4th, a 3-run 4th for St. Louis. The 1-2 pitch outside, 2-2. Also popped out to short. Two. Holiday. Couple of hops to the shortstop. Hardy makes the play. 2 outs. Mentioned before that the Cardinals minor league affiliate Memphis is competing for a championship, but there are some names to keep an eye on. Matt Pagnazzi would be one of those. If you're looking for a little extra protection at your catcher spot, Matt Pagnazzi's name certainly has popped up.
I talked to Tom, and Matt is his nephew, today on the phone, and I remember when spring training, it was quite apparent to me that, you know, a lot of people are familiar with Brian Anderson, who had a lost year due to injury, and he's going to go to the Arizona Fall League. But Cardinals love Pagnazzi's receiving ability and how his aptitude to work with the pitchers. And in my mind, if there was an injury to Molina or to LaRue, it was Matt Pagnozzi that was going to be called up. So I would think that he will get the September call-up.
Royce Ring, a lefty. He might get that September call-up.
He was horrible in spring training, but they were very high on him prior to seeing him pitch. But, you know, maybe he worked out some things at AAA.
David Freese could be on his way back to St. Louis. 1-2 pitch. Little bit up and outside. Hoffpower, you would figure that his name would be in that conversation. Tyler Green.
Tyler Green last week had a 2-home-run game, and then he followed it up the next night with another home run.
How about Alan Craig in the year that he's had?
That's the guy I want to see.
Down the left field line. It is hooking, and this ball is off the base of the wall. And it hops over the wall, so a ground rule double. And it's a fair ball. Ludwig making sure that it is. And a souvenir for that fan right there in that front row.
And how about bringing up Kobe Rasmus, who's been one of the Cardinal hitting stars, but split finger fastball, but it stays up. You know, when you get a ball, you know, thigh high, that's pitches up and usually going to get hit hard. And one hops the wall, and then it bounces up over the secondary advertising wall for the ground rule double. But Kobe 2 for 2, and they're going to intentionally pass him. How about this?
So intentional walk here to Colby Rasmus, and it brings in Yadier Molina. Remember, though, when Looper was in the rotation for the Cardinals, how much he struggled against lefties.
Yes.
And that's part of the equation right here. So they'll deal with Yadier Molina, who's grounded into a double play and also singled tonight. Be runners at first and second with 2 outs. Doesn't walk much, and not many intentional walks to Colby.
I think he will, as his career progresses, will have more and more opportunities.
It's his 3rd intentional walk this season.
Things to pay attention to. Khalil Green is 4 for 12 with 2 home runs against Looper.
I saw that, and I was curious as to why he had Thurston get this start, but I'm sure part of the equation, like we said,
left-handed bat.
Yeah, that's right, left-handed bat.
And Ankiel has never faced him.
So runners at first and second, 2 outs. Looking at the scoreboard, the Phillies hold on and they beat the Giants 1-0 in that ball game.
And I'm looking down at it's still early, but Colorado has a 4-2 lead over the Mets. So Colorado and the Giants were tied for the National League wild card lead. What the
chance here for Yadi to tie it up or put the Cardinals on top. He does. Base hit into center. Ludwig coming in. He will score. This game is tied up thanks to Molina. It's 4-4. They walk Colby, and Yadi made him pay.
I've been looking for the ground ball double play like he did the last time, but he gets a base hit like he did his first time up. Ball up in the zone, and usually an indication, you see him pointing to the bench, whether somebody gave him a little tip or just the fact that he just tied this ball game up. This team's starting to come to the ballpark expecting to win, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and these guys get here so early. I was talking with some of the folks before the game out. There's still a newness and a freshness with this team. It'd be one thing if you made these deals in the winter and you had this team from opening day, which would be great. It's a very good team, that's obvious. But with DeRosa added and Holiday and Lugo and now Smoltz, it's still fresh. And over the course of 6 months of a regular season and basically essentially 8 months, and then you don't even include postseason play because spring training now is just about 2 months. This gives your guys a jolt.
Yes, it does. And when you add quality character people and terrific ball players to the mix. They blend very quickly.
And time is called.
And you know, you just listen to a John Smoltz or, you know, Holiday, DeRosa. They're all just really quality guys that won the group of Cardinal players. Watching them play on the other side had great admiration for their ability. You know, are happy as a heck to get them on their team, and then to see how they blend in and just feel like so welcome so quickly.
Thurston has hit the ball sharply a couple of times, and last time he hit an absolute rocket to Prince Fielder, but nothing to show for it. 0 for 2.
And when you talk to, you know, Smoltz and Holiday and DeRosa in particular, I mean, there's nothing but team concept there. There's no individualism. It's not I, it's we. Focus a lot of attention and deflect attention to their teammates.
1-1 is hit sharply to first again. Fielder will step on the bag, and the Cardinals strand 2 in the inning, but they tie it right back up. Molina with his 44th RBI. Game recap is presented by Infinity. Back at Busch Stadium, that was in the first in a 3-run homer by Casey McGee against Joel Pinheiro. Albert has gone deep here tonight. Pujols with his 42nd and RBI number 111. That solo shot. Colby Rasmus has been on base 3 times. He has a base hit and an RBI. Intentional walk to go along with another single. RBI there for McGee. He's got 4 on the night, but Yachty made him pay after they walked intentionally. Colby Rasmus to get to Molina. He made him pay, and we're tied up 4-4 as we move to the 7th inning. And a strike at the knees to J.J. Hardy, and that's going to be it for Looper. They've got a pinch hitter, the on-deck circle, that's Craig Counsell, and a right-hander getting loose in the bullpen for Milwaukee. Another fastball at the knees. Boy, is this guy fun to watch or what? Pinheiro, if he misses, he doesn't miss by much.
And actually tonight, he really has not had the pinpoint control that we're accustomed to seeing. You know, he's had a few pitches are up. He's had, you know, when he had that retired 10 in a row, he dialed it in, and 10 of those were ground ball outs, and the only 2 were a foul pop-up that he caught, and the other one was a little pop-up that Schumacher caught. So that's when he had it dialed in, but obviously a little bit of trouble in the first inning where he allowed the 3-run home run. Last frame, they got 3 base hits off him, but it looks like he's back down in the zone again.
A 2-2 pitch to Hardy. Ground ball, little chopper. Shortstop Brendan Ryan from the outfield grass, and he'll make the play for the first out. And Hardy in his return to the major leagues tonight, 1 for 3. And brings in Craig Counsell. Remember when they had injuries earlier this season, it was Counsell who was playing most of the time. And there's a look at David Weathers. We saw David Weathers earlier this year with Cincinnati.
And where's Albert?
Just looking, Albert is due up 4th. So,
oh boy,
makes you think of that.
Ken Maka may not know.
Grand slam against David Weathers earlier this year. And really, you know, you think about those moments in a season that stand out, the really big ones over the course of a long year, and that's one of them. That grand slam. Thurston over, leans in, and just out of room. Good effort there by Joe.
Comes over here and checks himself, then leans over. Almost found that opening if he wasn't really paying attention. And you can see how Willie Randolph doing what all opposing clubs, offering very little support. They'll catch you if you fall in, but they aren't going to help you much more than that.
What do you think's going through Willie Randolph's mind as he's watching the Mets and what's happened this year?
I think in many ways he's relieved he's not at the helm.
With all the injuries that they have had. Couple late season collapses, of course, the loss to the Cardinals in 7 games in 06. And Willie Randolph now on the bench for Ken Maka here in Milwaukee.
You know what that reminds me of? You know, Bob Gibson always said managers and coaches get far too much blame when the team doesn't win, and they get too much credit when a team does win.
It's up to the players.
Absolutely right.
Here's a 2-1 pitch to Counsell. 4-4 game, and that's down and in, 3-1.
I think a manager can win a handful of games for you, but he's got a chance and a hand in every loss. He can help a team lose every game just by, not having them prepared mentally and physically.
Counsell trying to bunt on a 3-1 pitch and bunts it foul. People ask us all the time, why is Tony La Russa successful? And I still believe, Al, it's because his players respect him. And there's, I don't know if I want to say fear, but they listen to him, and his track record speaks for itself. Now, they do get good players. You have to have good players to win, but they play hard. And in this day and age in professional sports, that's not always the case. That is on the chalk. You could see it touched by a fan, so a ground rule double. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, and I'll add this to it, that Tony and his staff ask for a lot of commitment from their players, but they give twice as much commitment back to the players. And not every player can play for Tony La Russa, and it seems like the ones that do absolutely love it. They're willing to work hard. They take pride in their craft. He commands them to have a knowledge of the history of the game, respect for the game, play it hard in the right way. And there's no denying that he seems to get the most out of his players.
Felipe Lopez, 1 for 3 tonight, grounded out to second, grounded out to short, and that pitch is taken for a ball. It's the lefty up and throwing. That is Trevor Miller out there for the Cardinals. Pinheiro at home, ERA is about a run better here at Busch Stadium. And what's made him so good is that there's really no difference between the righties or lefties that he faces. Right-handed hitters at the start of play tonight hitting .262. The lefties .264. 2-0.
You've got terrific movement on your breaking pitches. Even low ball hitters, they still many times will pound it in dirt, but that's where that secondary breaking ball comes into play.
It's sharply to the shortstop. Brendan Ryan fires to first for the second out. Brendan has been busy tonight. And here is Jody Garrett. Well, you've got Braun on deck. You've had Miller up and getting loose, and you figure that he's getting loose for Prince Fielder now.
Read the USA Today, the article of the brainiacs in the game today. Jody Garrett was one of them. I was trying to think. They were talking about several Princeton players, but I think he might have been Stanford.
Chris Young is, of course, a Princeton graduate, and Mark DeRosa of the Cardinals, Ivy League as well.
He was at Penn, but the Wharton School of Business. Of course, I told him my sister-in-law graduated from Wharton, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Sure, he appreciated that.
He laughed.
Counsell is the go-ahead run out at second base. 2 outs here in the 7th. Garrett trying to put him on top. Pitch count at 91 for Pinheiro. He is due up first for the Cardinals. The bottom of the 7th. If he gets out of it, let's say he gets out of it this next pitch, you really wouldn't feel all that bad if he would go out there again. I mean, you'd feel, you know what? He's gone deep into games. He's had complete games. So what? Let him go back out there.
The last couple years, I think you were concerned when he got to right around 90 pitches, but that is not a concern this season.
1-1 pitch and a ground ball. We're going to find out as Schumacher underhands, and the out to Albert. Pinheiro gets out of the jam, and it's time to stretch here at Busch Stadium. We're tied up. It's 4-4. The free Anheuser-Busch Brewery Tour is open 7 days a week, and it's free. The tour includes a visit to the brew house, lager cellars, packaging facility, and the famous Budweiser Clydesdale's stable. For more information, please call this number, area code 314-577-2626. Again, that number, 314-577-2626. If you haven't done the tour, make sure you do it. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. Well, that'll be it for Pinheiro, as Khalil Green will be the pinch hitter for the Cardinals. And it is David Weathers in our Chevy called to the bullpen. David Weathers was with Cincinnati and now finds himself with the Milwaukee Brewers. Ken Maka has been using Weathers in the 7th, Coffey in the 8th, and then Trevor Hoffman in the 9th. And that pitch is a strike to Khalil Green. Khalil Green on this homestand, that pinch hit home run to set up the blast by Pujols, and the Cardinals would win it in late innings.
And we may see this. We were kind of debating about Pinheiro. And if you think about it, you know, he still has a chance if the Cardinals score at the bottom of this 7th inning that, you know, he can be in line for the victory. But I think with the commanding lead, that all of a sudden you start, this is when you might see guys go 7 innings and say, okay, we're not going to push it. We're going to keep them fresh too.
Outside and low to Green. 1 ball and 2 strikes as Blake Hawksworth is getting loose.
And you take a guy like Hawksworth, as well as he's pitched this time that he's been called up, the 2nd time, you still are going to have to figure out, is he battle tested to go into postseason? So you want to kind of see these more of them, see how they perform down the last couple weeks. You know, it is pressure free with the big lead, and you don't want to just by design get it back into a pennant race to find out if they handle the pressure.
Out to right field, pretty well hit off the bat of Khalil Green, and caught right in front of the track. Jody Garrett. This is our Hardy's prime cut of the game off the bat of Albert Pujols. David Weathers at that time was Cincinnati, and the grand slam on July 3rd in one of the biggest hits of the season. Albert Pujols grand slam off of David Weathers.
And it's not just that one swing. I mean, over their career head-to-head matchups, Albert has owned David Weathers.
And that was all set up by Jarrett Hoffpower's walk against a really tough lefty
in his major league debut.
Right. And later in that game, he picked up a base hit and RBI.
The game winner, if I remember.
The pitch is taken for a ball. 1 ball, 1 strike. It's been a while, I think, since Schumacher's gone deep. This would be the perfect time, wouldn't it? Skip lined it the other way. He'll take extra bases. On his way to second base. Dug out of the corner by Braun, and Skip was possibly thinking about going to third, but holds up at second base in this 4-4 game.
But that's the way you run the bases. You know, we talk about how you hit doubles. You got to leave the batter's box thinking too. He knows he has a double with this going down in the corner. But if you run hard, then you can think about the triple. And you watch and see if they field it cleanly. He played it perfectly, getting in the corner, finding the carom. He's got the play in front of him. You see him still running hard. And then once he saw that he cleanly picked it up, threw the ball back in, you know, you assume at the major league level to hit the cutoff man, and you don't test it.
Brendan Ryan pops it up, first pitch, and the catch made by Lopez. Here we go. Weathers and Pujols.
Now, if you knew the head-to-head matchup between Weathers and Pujols, there's no doubt you'd walk him. And that's what I think they're checking the numbers right now.
Well, he should know.
Give us the real line, Dan.
Well, if he doesn't know, shame on him.
And I'm sure they're going to be he's get the top step to get Kendall's attention, and you're going to see the 4 fingers go up.
Pujols 10 for 19, 3 doubles, 3 home runs, and 2 walks.
10 for 19. If you're going over the stuff, that just kind of jumps right at you, and you say, okay, Weathers will not face Albert with a game on the line. But what's the numbers against Holiday? Making you work.
You are. He's 1 for 5 with a strikeout.
I'll take my chances with 2 men on and Holiday at the plate.
And that one hit was a double. He's also walked against him. And Holiday has struck out 1 time. So here we go. Matt Holiday and Ken Maka will go to his bullpen.
Coffee. Maybe he's got better numbers against Coffee.
So Chevy called to the bullpen. Now on the road, does Coffee come flying in from the bullpen like he does at home?
Oh, yeah.
He's 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts is Holiday. And watch this sprint if he can figure out the door. That's been a sore spot for a lot of bullpen guys. They can't figure out the door, but Coffee very smooth. Here he comes. Here he comes. Come on, Todd. Todd Coffey is 62nd sprint in from the bullpen, a record of 4-3, and opponents hitting .249 against him. Good ERA, 2.61. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. So normally the 8th inning guy for Ken Maka. He'll now use him with 2 outs here in the Cardinals' 7th, and Matt Holiday, the hitter.
Holiday looking for his first hit off of Coffee, but you're talking about an exceptional hitter here and the high average hitter. Remember, Coffee was claimed off of waivers from Cincinnati.
They've been very pleased with the way that he's pitched. There's no doubt.
Got off to a great start with his new ball club. Was their pitcher of the month for July.
Schumacher, the runner at second. Drill. Left center. Has a chance to lead the park on the first pitch, and it does! A 3-run homer! Matt Holiday! Nobody happier in that dugout than Joel Pinheiro. They want the curtain call.
Well, remember, Pinheiro still the pitcher of record. He's got a chance to win his 14th game. And with 7 innings of work, you know, allowed 4 runs, but so what? He pitched well after giving up the 3-run home run in the first.
Cardinals lead it 7-4. They've got 10 hits tonight.
That's the problem when you try to look at pitching matchups when you have so few at bats. You know, one swing and then all of a sudden that decision doesn't look so smart.
There's a broken bat hit to third, and the Cardinals are done here in the bottom of the 7th, but the damage has been done. Matt Holiday in St. Louis now with 9 home runs with the Birds on the bat. So Matt Holiday makes it 7-4 Cardinals. 10 hits for the Redbirds tonight as he acknowledges the fans out in left field. They love him here in the Gateway City. The high leg kick, the explosion with the bat, and Holiday 9 home runs as a Cardinal. The standing O out there in left field. 2-hit night for Matt Holiday, and with that 3-run homer, that's now 35 that he's driven in.
No doubt about it. When that left the bat, you knew the Cardinals were taking the lead. Didn't know if it would get down, but look at the left fielder heading coming into your screen as that ball into the left center field stands. we're talking about. You can get down behind 3-0, and this team has enough firepower. And I think Matt Holliday, DeRosa, Smoltz have just been overwhelmed by reception from Cardinal Nation.
Up and into Ryan Braun. You could see Molina point at his elbow in the arm angle that it dropped, so he's trying to get him to raise that a little bit. That's why it tailed in. And the 20th appearance here for Blake Hawksworth this year. 2 balls and no strikes. It would be hard not to be enticed to want to stay here no matter what is offered to you. You know the offer will be competitive, you would like to think, to have him stay in St. Louis, but this is a situation where these players absolutely love it. John Smoltz is on the pregame show and talked about what it's been like for him going around town, and he's been playing a little golf and seeing fans, and the reception that he's gotten just blown him away, he said.
And there's from a future Hall of Famer that has experienced everything in this game.
Here's a 3-1 pitch to Braun and a leadoff walk. Last thing that he wants to do, or Tony La Russa wants to see. By the way, just wait until this lineup really clicks, and you can see Tony doesn't like what he sees. But and that's going to be it. He's going to go to the bullpen. That's the first time that both Pujols and Holliday have homered in the same game. And Trevor Miller coming in from the bullpen. That's it for Hawksworth. And he'll go with the lefty. Holliday, the 3-run homer, 7-4 St. Louis. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser, who thanks you for being a designated driver. And by Bank of America. Cardinals banking only at Bank of America. Matt Holliday, a 3-run homer in the 7th. Pujols is homered as well tonight. And the Cardinals behind a 10-hit attack. They lead it here in the 8th. It's 7-4. Trevor Miller, who just signed his brand new contract to remain in St. Louis, is into the ball game. This will be his 57th appearance. And Trevor Miller signed through 2010, an option through 2011, and lefties this year. How about this? 8 hits in 80 at-bats against Miller this season.
100 average. He's also very good at stranding inherited runners.
First pitch is swing and a miss by Fielder.
Trevor has that breaking ball working. Start that, you know, middle of the plate or a little bit further away, and then it breaks off the plate. Very difficult for these lefties to make contact.
Cole Hamels is now getting into postseason form. 19 consecutive scoreless innings. 2-hitter tonight in their 1-0 win against San Francisco.
Who pitched for San Francisco?
Sanchez, and he gave up only 3 hits.
Slider again. All 3 pitches, but they get out of the strike zone.
0-2 pitch in the dirt. Also stole a base, did Cole Hamels. First pitcher to do that since Curt Schilling for the Phillies back in 1997. Big loss for San Francisco as they were tied with Colorado in the wild card lead. Runner at first is Braun, and they'll throw over. And the Rockies lead in the bottom of the 5th over New York. It's 7-2. Cincinnati has beaten Pittsburgh 11-5, and the Cubs in the bottom of the 8th leading Houston 3-1.
Going to throw a fastball, you want to waste it. In my mind, with his devastating breaking ball, he cannot throw give up a home run to a fastball or really even a base hit. He goes, but that'll just set up on the 2-2 pitch back to the slider, and he can throw it out of the strike zone and get him to chase. 2-2.
And he tied him up. How good has Trevor Miller been this year? Strikes out Prince Fielder.
Well, the one thing, but he's been so good, and it was just the one batter he'll face, and Kyle McClellan, one of the stars on Sunday, will come in.
Another look at the strikeout from Trevor Miller in on the hands of Fielder and tied him up. 7-4 St. Louis. Well, the Cardinals have a 7-4 lead, and intentional walks by Ken Maka have backfired tonight. That base hit after the intentional pass to Rasmus tied it up. And this one, the big blow in the game tonight, Matt Holliday with a 3-run homer in his 9th here in St. Louis after the intentional walk to Albert.
By the way, that intentional pass to Albert now runs his single season record to 40 intentional passes this season.
But that was mostly done in the beginning of the season without Holliday.
It's only about the 3rd time since Holliday's been here.
And remember, we talked about an awful lot before Matt Holliday came to St. Louis, the job that Ludwig did when Pujols was walked, intentional or not. That ball got out of the Brewers dugout and onto the playing field. 1 ball, 1 strike. Here's McClellan facing Casey McGee. He has 4 RBIs tonight. 3-run homer in the 1st and an RBI in the 6th. And now with 44 this year.
Kyle was outstanding on Sunday as he retired all 5 for his 15th hole. You know, an amazing stat for Kyle McClellan. He's allowed just 8% of his inherited runners to score. His best in the major leagues. Just 2 of 25 prior to tonight.
Breaking ball taken low.
It's a good one right there that didn't get McGee to offer at.
And the Cardinals have talked about McClellan in the last couple of weeks. They want to see him very aggressive. A good fastball in on the righty's hands, and then match that with his outstanding breaking ball. The 2-1 pitch, and now 3-1.
That's what they want to make sure is he's pitching ahead in the count. You know, when you fall behind, you become a little more predictable. Usually when he has his rest, he is lights out. And he did pitch an inning and 2/3 on Sunday with the off day yesterday, but they are so protective of pitchers today. Good to see him back out there.
And a ground ball left side. Thurston to second, out there on the first. Double play. Double play. Thurston, Schumacher, Albert. The St. Louis Cardinals, the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, and Fox Sports Midwest have joined together to encourage young people not to smoke, because once you start, it's hard to stop. Strike out tobacco so we can all breathe easier. Call the Missouri Tobacco Quit line at 1-800-QUIT-NOW. And the Cardinals will face a lefty here in the bottom of the 8th. It'll be Rasmus, Molina, and Thurston for St. Louis.
Former Cardinal farmhand Chris Narveson signed with Milwaukee as a free agent. He was claimed on waivers from St. Louis by Boston back in 05. Originally selected in the 2nd round in 2000 by the Cardinals, acquired by Colorado as part of the Larry Walker deal. Kobe really had struggled against left-handed pitchers until he hit that home run over the weekend. That was his 2nd against lefties, but just a 140 average.
Nice note here from Butch Cannon in St. Charles, and he is enjoying Cardinal baseball tonight, and a big fan of the promo that we just read, the promo about smoking, as he's a longtime smoker, and he's talked about that he's kicked the habit and wants to encourage others to do so. It's Butch in St. Charles. 2 balls and 1 strike here on Colby Rasmus. Here's a 2-1 pitch, and Colby hits it out to center field. Just saw your Missouri Sports Hall of Fame friend of Marty Prather.
Oh,
Sign man.
Sign man was, I don't know what it tells you, but I was inducted the same year as Marty Prather.
It's got to make you feel proud. You're going with Marty,
does.
and who else was in your class?
George Kissel, Conrad Dobler.
There's a fly ball into right off the bat of Molina. 2 outs. 6 is a serious number. When the Cardinals score 6, you get a 20-ounce coffee, fountain, or frozen drink for just $0.25. The next day at On the Run at Mobile, win or lose, when the Cardinals score 6, you score 25-cent drinks at On the Run. Well, how about this? Troy Gloss has moved to the on-deck circle. And Mark DeRosa will pinch hit here for Joe Thurston. And DeRosa takes a ball up and in. Mark DeRosa dealing with that tendon sheath in his wrist that's been bothersome ever since he came over to the Cardinals. Happened right away. You're thinking, oh man, this could be one of those trades where it really backfires. You get the player in the final year of a contract. You gave up Chris Perez, who's been terrific as of late for Cleveland, and yet DeRosa then hurts himself, but not enough to keep him out of play.
Yeah, that's really the first couple days. And talked to him today about it, where the inflammation's back in the wrist, but really trying to quiet down a little bit, as it'll require off-season surgery, but he'll play through it.
Troy Gloss, who's on deck, 37 at bats in the minor leagues. He hit .216 with a couple of home runs.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the ovation he gets, or reception.
And a 3-1 pitch to DeRosa. Hit in the air to right. And this will send us to the 9th inning. The Cardinals, after the home run by Matt Holliday, they have a 3-run lead, and Ryan Franklin coming in. Coming up, it's U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live minus Jim Hayes, as Pat Paris will be with Cal Eldred, and also Rick Horton, part of U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live. A look at the home run heroes, Tournament of Champions, and inside the clubhouse. And happy to report that Jim will be back with us tomorrow. Much needed day off for Jim, so he'll be back with us tomorrow night.
You know, Jim has a son. You know, Jim has a son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an amazing statistic when you think about this. The lowest ERA in the history of the National League, with 20+ saves. You think John Smoltz and Gagne, Benitez, Abernathy back in '67, but here it is in '09. Ryan Franklin, 1.05. That's amazing. 1.05.
And he's been rewarded with a new contract, something the Cardinals did not have to do, but a nice gesture. And then they followed it up with one with Trevor Miller, and everybody in that dugout is hoping that John Mozeliak can pull off a couple more, little bigger names.
Just missed outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. And the saves this year, for the most part, you never say they come easy, but they've been quick saves more times than not. And here's the 1-1. Missed, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike. Control of Franklin has been terrific this year.
He's got a lot of weapons, but he throws quality pitches in the strike zone. Cameron 0 for 6 against Ryan.
And there's a line shot into left center field. That ball will get down, and Holliday can't cut it off. It goes to the wall. And Cameron, on the 2-1 pitch, a leadoff double, he winds up at second base.
Molina set up outside. The ball catch a little bit more of the plate, but good piece of hitting. And there you see where it eludes Holliday, giving him the double. I think it would have been a double either way, with the way Cameron can run. Wasn't a misplay at all by any means.
No. So a leadoff double, and here's Kendall. Just to repeat some of the numbers for Ryan Franklin this year. Leads the National League, and you see he's only 3 for 21. Kendall against this righty Franklin, but Ryan leads the National League with 35 saves and 37 opportunities, and the top ERA 1.05. Opponent's hitting 183, only 2 home runs allowed, and he's only walked 14 the entire year.
He's converted 11 consecutive save opportunities. If he gets this save right here, and look how shallow Kobe Rasmus is playing in center field now.
And also the right fielder Ludwig
pulled in. As Kendall doesn't have a lot of power. 1 home run on the year, but I would believe that if Ryan Franklin converts this save, he will pass Tom Henke for the best save percentage in Cardinal history.
And this would make it 36 of 38. 1 ball, 1 strike. Runner at second base. And Kendall has popped out, and twice he has grounded out. 0 for 3 tonight.
One thing about Kendall is he'll make that pitcher work. You know, he's not going to swing at pitches out of the strike zone, and a rarity for Franklin throwing more balls than strikes.
And a ground ball hit to short. Nice little hop at the end there for Brendan Ryan, who's been busy here tonight. It's now 9 ground ball outs to the shortstop, and our player of the game, Matt Holliday, 2 for 4, 3-run homer back in the 7th. Frank Catalanato is at the on deck circle, and this is J.J. Hardy with 1 out and a runner at third. First pitch to Hardy, taken low and in. Hardy against Franklin is 4 for 8 with a strikeout. Outfield is straight away. The 1-0 pitch fouled back. 1 ball, 1 strike. Hardy back in the major leagues has grounded out. He singled in the 6th inning and also grounded out his 3rd time up.
It's hard to believe with Hardy, his season numbers are down, but a year ago he had one of the best years recently of a shortstop in the National League. Remember, he had 24 home runs, hit 280 plus, 24 home runs, 74 RBIs, and
Two balls and a strike. So Franklin's contract will run through 2011. They picked up the option, added a year. And one of the biggest question marks coming into this season, who would close games out? Cardinals made a run at Brian Fuentes. He went with the Angels. Mott Perez, those two talked about as being potential closers, and here we are in September, and it's Ryan Franklin with one of the best years of any closer in franchise history. 2-2 pitch. On a hop to Schumacher, Cameron will come in to score. That cuts the lead to 7-5. So 2 outs. Catalanato will be the pinch hitter with 2 outs. 7-5 Cardinals. You can see Franklin right there, not happy with himself allowing that run to score, but it happens.
And it's more important is to get this final man and just pick up the win for the team, and he still gets a save.
Misses with that backdoor breaking ball. This crowd tonight over 40,000 here again. Catalanato 7 for 14.
Cubs win 4-1. Randy Wells picks up his 10th win.
What a year he's had. Catalanato slices one foul. 1 ball, 1 strike, and obviously it's important to get this out right here to close the game out. But if you can't get it here, that would bring the potential tying run to the plate.
Catalanato's numbers against Ryan, majority of those were a few years back in the American League.
On their feet here at Busch Stadium, the 1-1 pitch to Catalanato. It's now 16 pitches for Franklin.
What do you say? He's thrown 8 strikes in his 16 pitches. How about finish it with 18 pitches, 9-9, and pick up the save? Not used to seeing him pitching behind the count and throwing this many pitches.
3 balls and a strike on Frank Catalanato. Big gap in the right center, and he walked him. So the tying run comes to the plate. Out to visit Molina. Brings in Felipe Lopez. It also brings out a visit for Franklin by pitching coach Dave Duncan.
This is something that Duncan's rarely had to do this year. Go out to the mound with Franklin on it.
Remember, Chris Carpenter going in game 2 tomorrow night. Will come your way at 6:30 with the pregame show. And Jerry Davis out to break up the meeting and says, let's go. 2 outs, runner at first, 7-5 here in the ninth. Felipe Lopez 1 for 4 in his career against Franklin. Defensive indifference, no stolen base. Good pick there by Molina. 1 ball, 1 strike. Lopez, little pop in his bat. You have to be careful. He's got 8 home runs this season.
You were right. When he came over last season and helped the Cardinals, he hit close to 400. Wearing the Cardinal uniform. Then he signed as a free agent with Arizona. Milwaukee picked him up.
And a 1-1 pitch. Misses. 2 balls and a strike. Good seats still remaining, by the way, for the ball game tomorrow. Also an autograph night here at the ballpark.
And Chris Carpenter pitching. That's the best news, and might need him to go all the way in this game, as I wonder if Franklin will be available.
Lopez didn't like that call. 2-2.
Backdoor breaking ball that Lopez gave up on. Cardinals were within a strike of maintaining their 10.5 game lead over Chicago and winning their 87th game. Excuse me, not 87.
2-2 is hit out of play. Watch out.
The record last year was 86. It would be their 78th win. And 23 games over 500.
2-2 the count on Lopez. He represents the tying run. Vargas getting loose in the bullpen for the Brewers. And Brendan Ryan can't come up with it. Base hit out to left. Another run will score. Tying run now at first base. Go ahead run comes to the plate.
That's sometimes where that fielder's indifference, kind of comes back and you question it. But good piece of hitting. Ball down and away, just throws the bat at it. Brendan tried to knock it down and save that run from scoring. Talk, this Brewers ball club, they can hit.
Here's Garrett, and against Ryan Franklin, he is 2 for 10. Garrett rips it foul.
Breaking ball kind of floating up there, but he pulls it foul. He gets ahead, most important thing.
.25 pitches by Franklin here in this 9th inning. Lopez, the runner at first, he's got good speed. 0-1 pitch. 0-2.
Another breaking ball. 0-2.
Ryan Braun is at the on deck circle. Remember that.
It's incentive right now to finish it with this hitter. And he's 0-2. Should be able to put him away.
Here it comes. Just got a piece.
Not time to get him to chase something. Whether it's a splitter. Maybe Yachty can end another game by picking off a run or two.
.2 pitch.
Went upstairs, try to get him to chase. That'll just set up that splitter if he chooses to throw it.
Quick move by Ryan Franklin. That's something that also stands out about what he's able to do on the mound. Those quick feet and good moves.
And very important. Probably the best of any closer I can think of right now. Shutting down the running game with those quick feet.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. Just got a piece again. Some folks thought this game might be ended a few minutes ago, and it's been extended. There's Jody Garrett trying to keep us here a little bit longer and extended to Braun. Ooh, he almost got him.
Garrett has a 149 average this season, 7th inning or later.
This would be the 30th pitch of the inning for Ryan Franklin. And a swing and a miss, and the Cardinals win it. 7-6. They hold on. Matt Holliday, a big 3-run homer. The Cardinals are now 78 and 55 on the year. Holliday, the 3-run homer. Pujols goes deep as well, but the difference, one swing. Post-game show coming up.
The game is over with the come-from-behind Cardinal win. Rick Horton will join me up here on our post-game set
It's U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live. We'll break it all down, and it's coming up next. Here's what you can expect live from Busch Stadium. After one of the best months in team history, the Cardinals head down the home stretch trying to finish strong, and they do. Start September the way they finished August. Plus, Joel Pinheiro on the mound trying to give the Brews through that sinking feeling. Not his best start. Does get win number 14. We'll take you inside the Cardinal clubhouse. Bring you Tony Lewis's post-game thoughts, plus the plays of the month, and the Final Four will be set in the Cardinals Tournament of Champions. Happy birthday, Gloria Estefan. U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live is turning the beat around. It's coming up next.
Welcome to U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live.
Drilled, left center. Has a chance to leave the park on the first pitch, and it does! A three-run homer! Matt Holliday!
Matt Holliday lifting the Cardinals to a 7-6 victory. The three-run shot in the 7th inning, the difference in this ball game as the Cardinals improved to 23 games over 500 at 78 and 55. The Cardinals' magic number for winning the division falls from 22 to 21 with a Cardinal victory and a Cubs win as well. 40,119 leaving a cool Busch Stadium for this September 1st, but warmed by the fact that the Cardinals have a 7-6 victory over the Milwaukee Brewers in the first game of a 3-game set here at Busch Stadium. Hello, everybody. Welcome back inside Busch. It is the post-game edition of U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live. I'm Pat Paris. In a moment, Rick Horton will make his way up from the field to join me. We're going to break this one all down. We'll talk about Joel Pinheiro's start, and yes, he did pick up the win. Maybe not his best sinker ball game of the season, but he did pick up the win nonetheless. We'll bring you plenty of post-game reaction from inside the Cardinal clubhouse, Tony La Russa's thoughts as well, and another quarterfinal matchup, our final one in our Cardinals Tournament of Champions as we play that out, and our Cardinals plays for the month of August are coming up. You can get involved in the program as well. Send us a question or comment. U.S. Cellular text time. Send it to 432-432. Remember to include your first name, where you're texting from, and that message. Standard messaging rates, of course, do apply. Right now, back down to the field here at Busch Stadium. Rick Horton catching up with Matt Holliday, our Mid-America Chevrolet Dealers player of the game a short time ago. Rick?
Our star of the game is Cardinal left fielder Matt Holliday. A couple of hits in this game, obviously the big one in the 7th inning. You didn't waste any time in that at-bat.
Well, you know, you got to look at Skip. You know, Skip has a great at-bat, hits the double and gets on base, and then of course they have, you know, they put Albert on, and so you know they have to get on base, and then you know I got a pitch to hit, and I was able, you know, thank the Lord, I got a good swing off, and there we are. We got a 3-run lead.
Joe Pinheiro obviously kept you in this game tonight, but ever since you've joined this team, the Cardinals have shown that you have a chance of coming back in games. Is that something you guys were thinking in the dugout? This game still could be yours. You know,
I think that's our attitude. We're going to find a way to win, and you know, Joel gave up 3 in the first, but then he settled down and kept us in the game, and that's what you got to do. You know, starting pitchers give us a chance to catch up and chip away, and you know, then you know, once we get close, you know, you're one swing away from having a chance to win the game, and then you know our bullpen comes in and does the job. So it's a total team effort, and that's the way it's been in the last you know, since I've been here.
Yeah, the month of August was a whole lot of fun. I can't imagine anything being more fun, but September started pretty well as well.
Yeah, you know, it's fun to play with baseball when you know, everybody's contributing and it's different guys helping out, and just trying to help the team win games, and not really worrying about your personal stats or how you're doing personally, but what can I do to help the team win, and I think that's what everybody's attitude is.
Well, Matt, congratulations. Great game.
Thank you.
All right, that's Matt Holliday. Pat, back to you.
All right, Rick, thank you very much. Rick will join me here in just a moment on set. Right now, we go upstairs for a view from the booth. It's Dan McLaughlin and Al Raboski, and Matt Holliday says all he wants to do is contribute to help this team win. He's been contributing quite a bit in the last month plus, guys.
There's no doubt, Pat, and also in this game, we were talking about it during the telecast, how you make certain moves and sometimes they can backfire. That happened for the Brewers here tonight, in particular with those intentional walks.
That's right. Cardinals are trailing by 1 run in the 6th inning. They intentionally walk Kobe Rasmus, and then Molina comes up. He gets the tying run in. Cardinals are tied at 4-4, and then they have the same strategy in the 7th inning. After Schumacher gets a double, they intentionally pass Albert for the 40th time. First pitch to Holliday, a 3-run home run, and it was just enough as the Cardinals hold on and win 7-6 tonight.
And coming up later in the show, we'll talk about the start in game number 2 for Chris Carpenter tomorrow night. Pat, let's send it back to you.
All right, looking forward to that, certainly. Let's take a look at the highlights. Right now, we're going to start in that top of the first. Joel Pinheiro in some trouble, 2 on for Casey McGee, and the rookie sees a sinker that just doesn't sink, so he rips it to dead center, and Colby Rasmussen can do nothing but watch it land in the grass. Just the 7th home run of the year given up by Pinheiro, still tied for the least in the majors, but it's 3-0 Brew Crew. To the top of the 4th, Prince Fielder leading off. He gets a hot shot down the first base line. Look at the great play by Albert Pujols. Throws it over to Pinheiro for the first out of that inning. That Pujols fella can do it with the bat as well. Leads off the bottom of the 4th, and on the 9th pitch of the at-bat, Pujols takes an inside pitch, crushes this one deep and out to left. Pujols' Major League Best 42nd home run of the season. Also his 111th RBI, and the Cardinals are now down just 3-1. The Redbirds aren't done in that 3rd yet. Colby Rasmus up after Matt Holliday and Ryan Ludwig single, and Rasmus grounds a single through the right side. Holliday comes around to score from second, now 3-2. Cardinals with 4 straight hits to start the 4th, and they would tie it on a double play. Then now in the 6th, McGee up again with runners on first and third. Pinheiro leaves one up, and the rookie delivers. Jody Garrett comes in, 4-3 Brewers. McGee with all 4 RBIs to that point for Milwaukee. Bottom of the 6th, same score. Yadier Molina up with a runner on first and second after an intentional walk to Colby Rasmussen. Yadi delivers in the clutch. A drive to center. A single brings home Ryan Ludwig, and the game's tied at 4. Yadi now 293 with runners in scoring position this season. Tied 4-4 into the 7th. We're going to flash back to July 3rd. The Cardinals in Cincinnati, and in the 8th, Albert Pujols hits the grand slam off then red David Weathers to put the Cardinals up 4-3 in the 8th inning. Well, tonight, Pujols against Weathers, who is now a Brewer, and wisely, he gets the intentional pass that would then go to Matt Holliday.
Has a chance to leave the park on the first pitch, and it does! A 3-run homer, Matt Holliday!
First pitch Holliday sees from the next reliever, Todd Coffey, destroys it, his 9th home run and 35th RBI as a Cardinal in only his 35th game, puts the Redbirds up 7-4, and they would need those extra couple of runs as well. A little bit of a hiccup tonight for Ryan Franklin, but still gets his 36th save of the season. Downstairs now, Tony La Russa meeting with the media. Will take you there live.
Tony, how huge would you say the 3 and 4 holes in the lineup were at the plate tonight?
More than 5 for them. I forget what their third baseman did, but no, I mean it's the kind of games we have with Milwaukee. You know, they got a good ball club. They're very competitive, and you know, if they're ahead, we give them a scare at the end. If we're ahead, they give us a scare. It's just really play a lot of great games together, and it was scary. But Joel, you know, he came up early, and his sinker was waist high, and they slammed him, and he got better. Yeah, he got a real big out in the last inning that he pitched, and got a couple of big swings.
You like seeing Joel maybe get a little makeup for some of the games earlier this year when he didn't get any runs?
Well, that's a good point. And the point is, there's usually no justice in baseball, you know. But if that's the case, then we got a couple coming for Wainwright, because you know, Joel has pitched better than those number of losses, and you know, we picked him up. I mean, we didn't. The offense picked him up some today. But he also, after the first inning, you know, he gave one more run.
Tony, what does it say for a guy, Joel in this case, that he can regroup and get it together after struggling early and getting hit?
Well, he's been doing that more and more. I mean, that's what he's been doing. I mean, other games where maybe they don't get a 3 spot, but, you know, he hasn't been as sharp early. But that's not atypical for starting pitchers. And it's one of the things that good pitchers do, and other teams and ours guys do it. You know, I mean, we've seen Adam do it, you know, even Chris. Struggle a little bit early, and you just fight your way through it, and all of a sudden, everything falls into place better.
What does it say about where Skip is as a second baseman now? He turns that double play falling away where most people probably aren't even surprised anymore that he does something like that.
That's a good point. I think he's got to the point where, you know, we expect him to make plays, and you know, one of the things he's always had, besides all the things we talk about, his willingness to work and his toughness. You know, he really has a cannon for an arm. So the off-balance throw, he can get a lot more on it than most second basemen, and that was a clutch double play.
Is this continuation of some recent encouraging stuff from Rasmus? I mean, he kind of did a lot of things
yeah.
later.
Yeah, I think he's taking a lot of good at-bats. He's had a good at-bat against the left-hander, too.
Tony, of all the things you're playing for now, beyond, if anything, beyond the division, is the potential of having the best record in the league, any kind of carrot at all?
I mean, anything that ends up happening just falls out as a result of us trying to play the best we can for every game from here to the end. So whatever the record is, if we get to October, can't get distracted by chasing something that has nothing to do with competing the next day or the next series. So wherever the record ends up, as long as we take our best shot, no regrets.
You talked about competing. You get a couple of guys that come up after intentional walks, Matt and Yadier the inning before, and they come through. What's that say for the competitiveness and their ability to bear down in those situations?
Well, that's one of the things that's happened with our team is our team's gotten so much deeper. I mean, Yadier has always had this ability, you can remember from 06, dramatically. Yadier will give you a quality at bat with men in scoring position. And what's happened now is, if you look up and down, Skip had a big one, even Brendan's got some big hits. I mean, it goes up and down. Guys, everybody's capable of doing it. And the deeper the lineup is, the more fair it is for each guy to do what he can on the day he has a chance.
Has that been distracting at all for Franklin today? He signs that extension, and then hours later he's scuffling.
I actually thought about that, bringing Miller in. I mean, as a rule, I don't say as a rule, I don't have any numbers to support it, but it sure seems like it's happened over the time that, especially for a pitcher, you announce something that day, it's distracting. Miller got a big out. And I told Dunk, I thought Ryan was really, fired up. He didn't have that calmness that he had. Why? I don't know. Could be that he wanted to show everybody he's worth it. I don't know. But he was a little different today. But he fought through it.
If you were managing against this team, how much pause would you have, regardless, I know first base open tonight, but with Albert, how much pause would you have before intentionally walking him now with Holiday behind him?
I just think that it's part of us having a really good situation. If you pitch to Albert and he gets a big hit, just like I talked to Jim Riggleman the other day, and he had a sleepless night because he let, quote, Albert beat him. I said, well, Jim, the pitch was over his head. It wasn't like. So if you say Albert's not going to beat you, and then Matt gets a hit like he's been doing, it's just teams have that. Other teams have that. Now we have it. If you want Ryan Braun to beat you or Prince Fielder, they have the same deal going. You pick your poison, and either way, you're in a tough spot. What else we got?
Thanks.
There you have Tony La Russa's thoughts live here on U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live. Let's bring in Rick Horton now, who makes his way up from down on the field. He just got done talking to Matt Holliday, and obviously you asked him, and he agreed. This team feels like no matter what the deficit, they've got a chance to win if they play 9 innings, and they certainly played a great 9 innings tonight.
And I think that's a big difference from what we saw the first part of the season. I think the Cardinals, if they were down early, they didn't quite have enough firepower. Certainly they had Albert and Ludwig and others, but not the way they do now. There's just too many weapons on this Cardinal team to think that a 3-run lead is enough for victory.
And 2 home runs, one by Albert Pujols, one by Matt Holliday. First time that's happened since they've been together. They've hit homers in the same game.
Well, we knew that was going to happen sooner or later, and we got to see it tonight. Happy September, everybody. Albert Pujols and Matt Holliday both homering in tonight's game. It's a great night for baseball, nice cool September night, and Pujols' blast went a very, very long way. Albert's just been incredible all year, and Holliday has been spectacular since he's been a Cardinal, and it's nice to see both of them homer, and they both went a long way, come to think of it.
Yeah, 390 for Albert as far as feet go, but Matt Holliday, 416 feet, a 3-run shot to give the Cardinals the 3-run advantage in the 7th.
And he jumped on it, didn't he?
Yes, and he knew it when he hit it.
Well, you got to wait. Sometimes guys wait to get deep in the count because they want to get a pitch that they might be able to handle, and sometimes hitters will say, you know what, it might be that first pitch I see will be the best hit in the at-bat. Holliday came up swinging. They walk Albert in front of him.
and he makes them pay. That's the problem, or potential problem, I would say, of walking somebody, walking Albert with Holiday on deck, because Holiday has the capability of making it hurt with one swing, and that's exactly what he did.
And this is a scenario where a lot of the guys in the Cardinal lineup tonight didn't have much success. Now, certainly not a lot of history, but not a lot of success either against Braden Looper. In fact, Albert came into this game 1 for 6, I think, and just a matter of time they finally got to him, and Albert's was a particularly good at bat because he went very, very deep into the pitch count.
Well, one of the things with Albert, when he sees a lot of pitches, he's just going to get one sooner or later that he can handle. And Braden Looper sooner or later might make a mistake in that bat. Braden Looper can be very, very tough, and he's tough on Albert early on. He's working him in, goes away with a splitter, then comes back in again. But the more pitches you throw, the more apt you are to hang one. I mean, it's just going to happen. Tries to get in on him again with good location. That one, good location. Up and away. There's nothing in the center of the plate yet. This one's not in the center of the plate, but Albert's already seen 6 pitches in there, and so he opens up a bit and turns on it. That was a pitch, didn't quite have the same kind of life from Braden that some of the other ones did. So Albert turns on it. You know, that's not his first day at the rodeo. He knows how to make a pitcher pay for a pitch that just doesn't quite hit its spot. And for Albert to do that against his former teammate, I guess you'd say, you know, that's not being a very good friend, but that's just the way it goes.
Sometimes they've been too good of friends to their former teammates on the mound.
Yeah, well, you can't be. I mean, you know, you can be friends later.
Friends after the game's over, and they're still friends, I'm sure. Cardinals, though, picking up the victory. When we come back, we'll talk about Joel Piñeiro's night on U.S. Cellular Cardinals Live.